pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Moines County on April 12, 2022. Any changes to the agenda?
I have none. I have none.
We shall meet with department heads and elected officials. Sarah Doyle, payroll in the auditor's office.
Good morning. Nothing new to report, just keeping busy as usual.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Gerst, IT.
Nothing new to report, just keep busy as well, trying to finish up some of our conversions to the new phone system, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Chris Lee, conservation.
Good morning. Just trying to get our spring burns worked in between storms and high wind days. And then had a good ribbon cutting at our boat ramp last week. It was cold. Cold and windy. It's a terrible day to be out. But we had half a dozen people show up or so. So that's kind of fun. And had a lot of compliments on the new boat ramp. So that's good. And then just remind folks that turkey season is now open. And so if you're out on public lands and stuff, just they're making turkey hunters out there. So.
Did any boats go down that new ramp on the opening after the ribbon cutting?
Not right after, but there was one coming out that had been fishing that morning that,
Okay.
that came out, and then just before it, one of them launched to head out to go try to catch the crappie that I hear we're biting. So,
Good.
yeah.
Jared Laster, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning.
Morning. We've got subdivision on the agenda today. It was the one that was initially on last week, but we had a whole thing to clear up there, and we're ready to go with that one. And I got another one just submitted last week that's out for review. Apart from that, just keeping busy. Just had a fair amount of inquiries and subdivisions, zoning permits, as usual. So nothing else to report.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Cheryl McVeigh, First Deputy and Auditor's Office.
I just have an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Janelle,
Good morning.
Treasurer's Office.
Just keeping busy, nothing new to report.
Taxes, getting delinquent taxes, are we?
There's a future plan in, yeah.
Thank you. Ken Hyden, Seal Agent for Mental Health.
Good morning. Now, tomorrow, we have our monthly meeting, and so we'll be talking about the 2080s and the MOUs and the, I've got 3 contracts going to the governing board tomorrow, so it'll be a busy day tomorrow. We'll get our normal business done too, so.
Okay, thank you. Terry Johnson, the County Auditor.
Good morning. Just an election update. We ordered our ballots. We got our proofs back, but we have not approved anything yet until we hear, hopefully by the end of the week, what's going on in the courts so that we can make changes or do our final ballot. So, and then, because we have to have them by the following week for any UCAVA voters we may have, and start getting ready for the primary election in June.
Thank you. Natalie, the Recorder's Office.
Good morning, just nothing new to report, just keeping busy.
Thank you. Have you heard any more on the ATV, UTV one?
Nope, they must be busy working on other
Yeah, I
stuff.
haven't heard anything either. I thought maybe you might be on top of it.
No news.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carter, out on secondary roads.
Getting better. Dry weather helps. So no, plenty of closures and plenty of work going on. Finally got our stretch of dry weather that laid up roads, so that's a good deal. Yeah, other than that, it's just, it's entering busy season. It's in busy season, I guess. So, but things are going good.
Thank you.
I should mention, we did bid that paving project for Upper Flint. I think we had an engineering, I'll bring you the report, so the numbers, I'll give you the exact numbers. I want to say the engineer's estimate was ballparkish, so I'm probably off, probably like 790. And that's taking into account some of the newer numbers in construction, I guess is what I'm gonna say. The bid came in right around that. We had alternate bids, so one was around 790, one was around 800. So, I'll kind of give you an idea of how big a jump that is from the last couple of years. I have not sat down and done that analysis yet, so when I'll run it through you. Once we have a contract put together, it'll come to your guys' agenda, and we'll run it through and move forward, and I'll kind of give you an idea of how much things are up. But otherwise, we had 2 bids, and I thought they were competitive as possible, and so just to kind of give you a heads up on that and how that went.
Hey, how far off was that bid from what you were estimating before you got it in?
Budget-wise, it was almost dead on. Yeah, so it's really just a matter of how much higher it is compared to what it would have been. But as far as in our office and as far as my budget goes, it's not a budget buster or anything like that. We anticipated it. We were just hoping we were wrong. And we weren't, so.
Thanks, Brian. Trent, how's the county attorney's office?
Good, nothing new to report at this point. I'm sorry, I might have just got the email about the wind one right before this, let's do that crosswalk. That doesn't look as urgent as we thought, because there's a 19-year kind of look back, but I think the main thing they're trying to stop is either, subdivisions government going back and forth and changing from one code section to the next to the next. So I'll be able to email that to you by next week.
I wasn't sure, it showed up in my inbox about 10:30 at night, and I go, and I got heart palpitations, so I forwarded it to the attorney's office.
Well, there is to an extent. They're saying, there's a provision, that's really the biggest change, is there's this provision that if you go to change, there's this 19-year look back. So if it then protects, I guess, whoever's developing these windmills or wind farms for, a locked-in rate for up to 19 years, but it protects the municipality somewhat too. I think there's basically an option of this 30% valuation or to use a per kilowatt hour. And there's a couple different statutes that come to that. The only concerning part that I think other than that is, it's not just the towers themselves, it's also the power lines, which I think could probably go over quite a few acres. I mean, depending, but I don't think we have any current windmills in the county, do we?
No. I'll look forward to your response.
Okay, cool. All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trent. Chad McEwen, how's the sheriff's department?
Good morning. Nothing much across the street other than we're done training and we're finally at full staff for a little bit. Out at the correctional facility, looks like we got the same 3 juveniles, 1 out of county for 73 total. Nothing else.
Okay, thanks, Chad. Rodney Blazer, maintenance.
Good morning. Really busy getting into starting our mowing season. So we're trying to get that in between the showers and when the ground's not too soft. But other than that, I received an email last night. They would like to start on the front step project next Monday. So we're going to go ahead and plan for that. So the 18th, they're going to start on that.
Okay, that's good, get that done and over with.
Yep.
Okay, did I miss anybody? Seeing that I didn't miss anybody here, we shall move on. Correspondence? Seeing no correspondence here, what's that doing? Okay. Move on to discussion and vote. We have resolutions for 2022-30 for final plat of the rear subdivision. Jared, that would be you.
Alright, so this is an interesting situation where land use and transportation planning intersect. So if you saw this plat, it's obviously a very unusual shape of the subdivision here. So the reason it's it has that triangular shape is because this is where the new 4-lane Highway 61 will connect back up with the current alignment just north of Mediapolis when they put in the bypass around the west side. So this is just north of Mediapolis city limits, between the current 2-lane highway and where the right-of-way that the DOT has purchased for the 4-lane, just to the west. So this is part of a large farm property that stretches way back to the west, north and west. And it's owned by a family trust with the representative being currently a resident of Minneapolis. And he is intending to split this up into 3 parts. So actually there was a piece that was split off before, if you see on the plat, parcel E, because there were 2 homes that were originally situated on this larger property. That piece had already been split off a couple of years ago. That was allowed as the first split that is exempt from a subdivision requirement. So that one has already been transferred to a different owner. But lot 3 on this subdivision is about an acre, is another existing home that will be split off from the farm ground and sold separately. And then lot 2 at the north end of the subdivision, about 2.5 acres, that is planned to be purchased by the subdivider and his wife. They plan to relocate and build a home on that property. And then the remaining land, about 11.5 acres, lot 2, would continue to be under the family trust ownership and would continue for the foreseeable future to be used for farmland. So in terms of comments we received, there was initially some concern from the health department regarding the kind of irregular shape of lot 1 and the lay of the land there with regards to a septic installation, but the county sanitarian has subsequently met with the subdivider on site and is now satisfied with what they have planned, and that lot will be sufficient to serve that system. Apart from that, all of the discussion is centered around access. Part of the issue we're dealing with here is the fact that we've got currently state right-of-way on both sides, but the existing highway is a DOT road, but it will be transferred to the county once the bypass is put in. So there's considerations from both the county and the DOT that are important, particularly since this is going to continue to serve the highway traffic while the new road is being constructed. So ultimately, we determined that the DOT is comfortable with allowing an entrance for lot 1, a new entrance for that new house. It's just that it hasn't been permitted yet because of they're short-staffed at the moment and haven't had the chance to get someone out there to inspect and determine exactly where that would go. But they are at least comfortable allowing an entrance somewhere along the south end of lot 1. The other issue that came up in the past week that we were trying to straighten out was access for the farm field, lot 2, because the existing access is through the driveway on lot 3, which will be split off just to be sold. So ultimately, we determined that there's actually a little strip, a lane at the south end, right by the Minneapolis city limits, that previously served a house that's pretty good distance to the west, but because of the way the highway right-of-way was purchased, that has been cut off from its access to 61, and that particular owner is now going to have access from Mediapolis Road instead. So ultimately, we determined that while that little strip there on the east side of the new right-of-way is still under the ownership of that person on the opposite side, because of the way there used to be an abandoned rail corridor. You can see it on the plat, the diagonal 50-foot strip going through there. There was actually 2 rail lines that split off there, and because of the way the right-of-way was held, there actually is a decent little piece there right on the west side of 61 where that lane is actually still under the ownership of the same family trust. So they actually do have direct access to 61 through that little strip there. And ultimately, I think their plan is to purchase the remainder of that strip going all the way back. since it can no longer functionally serve that other home, but that hasn't taken place yet. But ultimately, we determined that, yes, they do have the ability to access that farm field independently of the other two lots, which was our concern initially moving forward with this. So with all that in mind, we've included the standard condition on the resolution about the septic system being installed prior to the home being occupied, and just as a formality, a condition that they need to get permits from the DOT before installing a new access at any of these lots. So with that, we recommend approval of Reeder Farm subdivision. I should also mention it is in the 2 mile area west of Mediapolis, and they have submitted a formal resolution waiving their right to review.
Right on. I move to approve resolution 2230, final plat for Breeder Farm subdivision.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. We'll sign the rest of these after the meeting, Jared.
Yep,
It's
thank
okay
you.
with you.
We just, last week we drove past and we got a chance to check that out in the flesh. So we drove past Breeder Farm.
Yeah. Will look a lot differently in a few years.
No doubt.
Okay, moving on, we have a resolution 2022-31, setting the time and the date for the budget amendment hearing, and that would be Cheryl McVeigh or?
We have April 26th at 9 o'clock, a public hearing for a second budget amendment of the year. It's gonna be a little over $3 million. The majority of that, 2.6 million, is just some housekeeping that secondary roads is gonna do. They have to stay within their DOT classes, so they're just moving some money around to clean all that up, so that's the majority of it, and we'll go over it more in detail at the public hearing.
Thank you.
It'll be, it's gonna be in the papers next week. It'll be on the county website also.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Motion to approve the resolution setting the time and date of the fiscal 22 budget amendment hearing.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Moving on, we have personnel actions. We have one for the local health. It's Karen Kemp, office manager, resignation. Effective date 4/1/2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. We have the recorder's office. We have the clerk 2, Renee Wellborn. It's a anniversary date, 12-month step increase, $31,756.64 to $32,453.60.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. And we have 2 for the sheriff's here, we'll do both of them at the same time. First one is for Thomas Sites, it's an anniversary date, 36 month anniversary. Previous rate was $57,931.07. The new rate is $62,809.51. The second one is for Colton Atkins. It's an anniversary for 36-month anniversary date. Previous salary, $57,931.07. The new salary is $62,809.51.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Whoops, got to ask you, sir, I'm ahead of you.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. At least these guys approved it before us, man. I'm in such a big hurry, I want to hurry up and see what Carter's got to say.
He's prepared.
And the next one here is for the Correctional Center. It's Isabel Donlin. It's a new hire cook, $9.02 an hour.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, we have reports. We have the reporters report, the fees collected March 2022. And these will be on file in the recorder's, in the auditor's office for your reviewing it. At your discretion. We have the minutes for the regular meeting on April the 5th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, before we move on to this next one, I don't want everybody to run off here real quick. It's gonna be a public hearing for the 2023 DOT secondary road budget and 5-year construction program. So, we're gonna move that down to last. Is that okay with you, gentlemen?
It's okay with me.
It's hurtful, Jim.
But is it really?
I honestly hate to miss that, but the Alliant guy's coming to check my meter. And I'm not gonna be able to attend, but I'll be with you in spirit.
What are you gonna do? I can understand.
Is that why he's coming to check mine too?
This is the day.
You have coordinated excuses.
This is the day.
Jim, do you even have a lion?
Ooh, burn.
I know where you live, though.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, you can barely see it. I did a chicken scratch.
Oh, okay. No, before we do, I do want to thank Brian. He takes us out and shows us everything that we're going to go over, so we do have a good understanding of it. I would encourage you all to stay here and listen to it one time. See how interesting it really is. And I'm not just saying this for a joke. It is interesting to know what's going on in the county on the road. That's a big part of public safety is our county roads.
So how many of you are sticking around?
I see none.
Perfect show of hands.
Huh?
I said I was staying around.
You don't count. The worst.
Is there any other business?
I have none.
Have none.
And future agenda items would be the budget hearing coming up. That's the only one that I know of. Committee reports. have none.
I attended the county safety committee. It was a recap of the tornado drill that evolved into a rigorous discussion of the weather radios and their shortcomings. And Shane and I both attended the governor's workforce roundtable last week with the Greater Burlington Partnership. I was impressed she came down here and they have a lot of ideas, so they're concerned. That's all I've got.
Well, you guys was on that, I had a bunch of third graders up in Davenport at the Putnam Museum.
I wonder who had a better time.
Okay. If there's any public comments, you can call the board at 753-8203, extension 4, 753-8203, extension 4, or you can email board@dmcounty.com. That's board@dmcounty.com, and we will give you 2 minutes to do that. Does anybody here have anything to say? Tom, one of these days you're gonna surprise me.
Perhaps. Then again, maybe not.
Maybe not,
Chad, have things been fairly quiet, or they picked up a little as the weather's, granted, it's not really hit us with warm weather yet, but.
It hasn't really hit yet, no.
Hasn't it? Yeah.
It will.
Yeah, I'm confident.
It's quiet in here. You guys seem so professional and stuff.
Hey Chad, if you got an extra deputy, you can send with Tom to make sure his meter's getting checked.
Well, I might just go with him.
Hey, sometimes it's a two-person job.
Tom, I'll go ahead and drive.
I want to see the camera on that. Make sure you got the camera on. I want to see that.
I know both of you, so I don't think that would be a good idea. Okay, the 2 minutes is up, so we shall go into, unless you guys want to break before we go into it. I don't.
Motion to open the public hearing for the secondary roads budget and 5-year construction program.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
I'll give everybody a chance to exit.
Brian, I haven't got a problem.
Yeah, they were
They
staying.
wasn't even moving.
Yeah,
Cheryl's gonna stay.
yeah,
I doubt it.
yeah, they were all staying, you can tell.
Cheryl,
No, it's a 5-year construction plan.
and budget hearing.
Same as last week.
There are numbers,
Well, I didn't know
Cheryl, there are numbers
This guy.
It's more exciting when you're out on the road though, not looking at a map.
I agree.
We didn't get to.
Can I
we
get an
didn't
invite
as
to the
far as
road
we
tour
wanted
next
to.
year?
Some of the
Yeah, but
stuff
you
we
gotta
did.
show us Breeder Farms. Somebody had to leave.
Yeah, some bus driver.
And some of the roads that only Jimmy knows about. Tom got that, anyway.
Hey, you live in
That's a
Minneapolis.
board secret.
I know.
I can tell you where a bunch of good roads are at, I won't show
And
you.
in fact-
Yes, sir.
See us leaving.
A little late, That, not a problem.
Here, was Chris Lee already here?
Yeah, he was already, we left, we just finished the meeting, all that's left, we're having the public hearing for the secondary roads 5-year,
How you doing?
plan.
Pretty good, Shane.
But you're certainly welcome to stay for that.
Well, I was,
It's a public hearing, you can
I
actually
know,
speak.
I was trying to.
Al goes wherever he wants,
man, you know.
You want me to text him or call him and see if he's nearby?
I've got my phones.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they left 5 minutes ago.
He should be in the vicinity.
I just missed him.
Yep. Well, you ready?
Al,
Huh?
Ort?
Ort.
Al Ort. He was a neighbor.
Yep. Okay,
He's the one
okay.
that did all, Civil War reenactment.
Yep,
He
yep,
used to-
yep,
He
yep.
used to be,
He used to be
way
a,
up here.
yeah.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah,
I
for
thought
years
he was
back
up
in the
there.
day.
Okay, Mr. Carter, we're still on.
All right, we'll get rolling then.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm gonna go through stuff, so I'll leave it to anybody that's got questions or wants to go in depth or ask any details at all, jump in. Don't wait for me to look up or whatever, so, we'll start right off, Highway 99, paving near the T-17 bridge, which is a long way to say this is the project, the first half of it's not in here because it's gonna bid in May, but this is the Dry Branch Bridge that's up there between Golf Course Road and Walker Road, 90th. We've talked about this for a number of years now. The bridge and the first phase of grading are actually being bid in May. So since those are being bid in May, we don't put those in the current 5-year program. This is, that project's getting funded with the bridge swap funds and farm to market funds, and then this project is the kind of the follow-up to that project, and this will be the portion of the project that would actually close the road, and we would take the old road out, we would finish the grading for the new road alignment.
Can you go back and just repeat how that's being paid for? Farm to market, what was the other funds?
Bridge swap funds is what I would probably generically refer to them as.
Okay.
Used to be federal bridge funds, but now they're swapped, so, which is going away, so you won't hear the word swap a whole lot coming up, but,
Did they run out of money for the whole thing, or just parts of it?
they didn't run, what happened with swap funding is that you get federal money in, and then the DOT kept the federal money and swapped it 1-for-1 with what we call state money. With the new federal highway bill sending additional money, the thing with federal funds is you have to match them. It's an 80-20 match, so you have to have that 20% to match. The DOT doesn't have enough local money laying around to swap them 1-for-1 and still follow through with those various requirements of matching and stuff like that. So I think they used to swap roughly, they had about, I wanna say they said they had about 150 million geared towards swap. I could be off by that. By the time this was all said and done, they were only gonna have about 50 million available towards swap. So part of the negotiations that are going on is that the counties kind of conceded that we deal with federal funds more often than cities. So they're gonna let the cities hang on to this, what little swap there is left, and the counties will just end up dealing with federal funds again. So it came down to the state didn't have enough local dollars to handle their matches and ship that much local money in return for federal money for the counties. Well, counties and cities, because the cities are losing some amount of swap also. So what they're gonna do is I think they're talking about just trying to keep one particular program that the cities use, whether it be, probably will be bridge funds if I had to guess. And the city bridge funds will remain swap, and then everything else. STVG funds, which is kind of your federal road funds that go through regional planning, and then county bridge funds, those will all just revert back to what they used to be, which was federal funds, direct federal funds. So,
Feds do what they do. They couldn't overcome a state law to get around some of the regulations, so they just covered it up with money.
yeah, yeah, and you know, how much money is yet to be determined, I've had that question asked a lot, and
It'll be more than they've got.
it already is more than they've got.
Swamp money, there's some of that money, like, we didn't get any, that, nobody got that year when they were building that ethanol plant, or, not ethanol, the, fertilizer plant down there, when they give all that money, the state
Well,
give all that money.
they tried to give it all to them, they didn't succeed.
Yeah.
No, that actually would have been federal funds at that time. SWAP came in about 3 years ago.
Okay.
It's not a brand new concept, there are some other states that do it to some extent. It just hadn't taken hold in Iowa. And essentially what it was it was basically a goal of efficiency is what it was. I think if you wanted to, my suspicion is the DOT saw away the downsides in office also, so. But SWAP's only been around for 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years, something like that, and I mean, it was beneficial. I don't think it was as beneficial as some of us thought it would be. And I don't think the biggest thing going back to federal funds, I mean, it brings in a lot more upfront work, and it brings in a lot more tail end work, because the audit process at the end and then the upfront work, it's just a longer process and a more tedious process. In between and construction and stuff, the biggest headache, none of that really changes a bunch for how we were handling our business. It also brings in more budgeting work, because as I mentioned, federal funds require 20% match. So you really gotta pay closer attention to make sure you've got the accounts lined up to handle that 20% match. There's one classification of bridges that does not require the 20% match. I'll mention that as we go through here. So one classification requires it, one classification doesn't. So if it could be a little more complicated, that'd be great, but that's a very, very broad stroke of what we'll be heading to. So essentially, I want to say December of this year is the last you're going to see SWAP funds exist in a county 5-year program, is I believe what's going on. So this project that's in here is the second half of the Dry Branch project. So like I said, that will be the closure. Until we bid the first portion in May, I don't think I can sit here and really guess exactly when this project will happen. If I get my way, the bridge will get built kind of over the winter and then into next spring. And then hopefully we can bid this thing sometime in December or January for like next summer construction, I would say, is kind of a goal, but time frame wise, it's pretty loose at the moment, you know, because it is contingent on when that bridge gets built, the new bridge gets built. You can't go close the road and pave it until you get that new bridge in. So that's that project, and you know, there's probably more unknown in this 5-year program than there has been in a long time because of costs. And I say that because you're gonna hear me, I could easily say, normally my first 3 or 4 years are pretty well dialed in to really what I think we can do, what we can afford. There's some projects in here, all the way through this, you're gonna hear me multiple times say, we won't do that if we don't have the money. They're not intended to be placeholders or dead spots, but you have to have something like that when we're in the time of uncertainty that we're in.
Right on.
So just as a little precursor going into it. So, the second project there, Bridgeport PCC Paving, I suspect that cost estimate of 1.2 million. What we'll do is we'll turn around and take our bids we just took and apply them to this project. My guess is that 1.2 million might be a little bit short. It might be a little bit low. That project is not quite a mile. I'd say it's probably it's over 3/4, but it's not quite a mile. This is the stretch of concrete between the geode quarry and Agency Road, which is the road, if you keep following it, it goes to the dam down at Lake Geode.
That's when we did all that patching on too.
Yeah, we did I wouldn't call it a big, but a moderate patching job on it probably 5 or 6 years ago, just to kind of try to hold it together.
For the RAGBRAI.
RAGBRAI was a reason also. It's done its job, but you know, I think Pleasant Grove, we're doing a project there right now in front of the quarry. This has that quarry traffic. I think you can see where that extra traffic is. And so this is replacing that mile. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I'm married to that 1.2 million, but that's what it is. That's a locally funded project. My goal would be, this is kind of a strange one, but my goal is to try to start that project, get it bid sometime late fall or early winter. And we don't have this thing designed yet, so there's a lot of office work. And I'll start, I should lead into this program giving my office a ton of credit, because the amount of work that we have put out of that office in the last 3 years. I mean, I talk about the construction, I take you guys out and look at it. What I don't do is very well is drag up the people in the office that put it all together, because bridges are the only thing we contract out. And even sometimes on part of those, we do some of that work in our office as far as the road goes. For instance, that Dry Branch project, we did all the road design ourselves. The only thing that they did was the bridge design for us. So all of that gets, from concept to bid documents, gets put together in our office. So I have no idea what it would cost if you brought in consultants to do everything they do, but it would be a chunk of change. So a lot of credit goes to my office for all of this. So anyway, that's Bridgeport. My goal would be to bid it sometime probably late fall. And I'm toying with maybe forcing construction to start maybe in early March, which is, I would say, very rare and maybe a mistake, but we'll find that out when we get there. I say that because you've got an asphalt plant and a fairly major quarry sitting right on the south end of this. And obviously March and even early April tends to be a bit slower construction season, but then everything gets rolling.
How long is this project gonna be?
I'm sorry?
From beginning to completion, how long is it gonna take for that? Ish?
6 weeks.
I'd have to say 6 to 8. I mean, almost a mile of paving is a lot of paving.
Yeah, at least
I mean,
about
it's-
2 months.
The good thing is there's not a whole bunch of houses along it, so, and we're gonna do, there's a segment where if you've been down there, there's a gravel road that comes out just like 500 foot south of this intersection. We'll get that tied in as soon as we can, so that we can use that gravel road as kind of a detour. But from there on down, I'm not sure there is a single house actually between there and the quarry. So that does let the contractor just blaze and go. So that helps. But, and you're obviously sitting very close to the quarry, which I'm assuming is where the rock would come from. So, but just figuring it out, trying to get it built with as short, or at least as, I shouldn't say short as impact, but as minimal impact as possible. So, but anyway, so there's a lot more time and thought, and as we get closer to all of that, certainly we'll talk further about it. Next one is bridge replacement project, Far North Bridge on Highway 99. If you look across at the $1 million total, which again, we'll have a better idea when we bid this bridge in May. It's got a special, it's listed beside special for funding. I would note that this is the bridge the first bridge that I would target with ARPA funding. So what my point in all this is we've already signed the contract. We're gonna start preliminary design. The surveyor's been out there this winter. He's probably got it all surveyed by now if I had to guess. But realistically, if there's not enough ARPA money to go after it, I don't have the money to go after it. It's not our worst bridge in the county, but as far as being a major road and a major, well, for any kind of industry in this county, no matter ag, no matter what you're talking about, Highway 99 is crucial, not to mention just for the general traveling public. We all learned that when we closed down by Burlington. So I don't think that was a surprise. So this is the bridge I'm targeting with ARPA money. If the money's available and if we think we can afford it and move forward, we'll have preliminary plans well on the way because of the timeframes that are required. And I've talked to you guys about this. You know, I think the perfect world would be probably bidding this, and probably the perfect world would be bidding this in either probably early spring or probably late summer, fall of 23 for 24 construction. I don't want this closed in the wintertime. There is not a great detour other than going clear over to Highway 61. And there's a lot of hilly gravel roads around there for people to be running around on that don't know where they're going in icy conditions and stuff like that. So my goal is to try to, if I got my way, this thing would get squeezed in between planting season and harvest. But at a minimum, I want to try to get it, I would rather mess up planting season than harvest down in this area. So we've got to have it obligated by 24 and we've got to have it spent by 26, right? So we shouldn't have a problem with that, with getting the jump on things. But realistically, by the time we get environmental and everything, I have a hard time seeing this bidding until probably sometime next year, at the earliest, maybe next winter sometime. So
The advantage to using federal dollars is that where they were calling the board out here on 99, tell them you're using federal dollars and they can call Joe Biden. I'm having to take a 6-mile detour.
Get the direct line. Yep, or just send an email.
Ryan, when you say planning season, what time is that?
Planting season's typically from mid-April to mid-May, or give or take.
Okay, you said planting season.
Planting.
Okay, I thought you said planning, which got me very
No,
confused.
planting. Yep, sorry. So we'll see. There's a lot of unknowns on this one. We are kind of doing the early steps, and we'll see. We'll go from there. So, next one down, Seven Ponds Road. This project's something's gonna get done on Seven Ponds Road. It probably at this point would be next year. I just from looking at where asphalt prices are right now, and not having a full plan of attack yet, there's a chance we'll do something this summer, but it's probably more likely next summer. So, and I don't know what it'll be. It'll be a low-level project, maybe a small scale, like a mill and fill or something like that. So it's just, that road just needs something done at some point, and we have it in here. I can tell you this, even though it's not a major project, my guess is 200,000 is probably low at the moment. So, but being as I don't know exactly what we're gonna do and when we're gonna do it, I didn't get real detailed on estimating. So, the next two are what I'd call kind of local smaller bridges. Probably would be beam and slabs when we're all said and done. The top one is 160th Street. This is in the bottoms. On a dead end road. We've talked about this for a couple of years. This is the one where we put in triple tank cars, and the levy district came along and asked if we'd consider putting a bridge back in. I talked to the board, because obviously we've already put tank cars in. Board was fine with it. If they'd have said something to me before we did the project, and keep in mind, they were fine with tank cars at the time. I talked to them before that. But there she goes.
Run, Natalie, run.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Her electrician's on the way.
Somebody get the door.
Yeah.
Didn't even get through the first area.
No, I can wait them all out. Anyway, it's in the bottoms. The last conversation I had was that the levy district was probably gonna buy the tank cars from us and help us getting them out of there, which will be a beast to get those out of there. So, and if they had come to us before, we probably would have put a beam and slab in to start with, but they were fine with what we did, and what we did was more economical. But the old bridge abutments are still there. We're just gonna basically do like we've done elsewhere, put new abutments behind them and put a bridge back right over top of where the old bridge was. So,
That's on that road where it went down and looked at the dog.
I believe so.
Yeah.
So, so that's in there. I can't, again, say that I spent a whole bunch of time on estimating. I can tell you one of the reasons I didn't do that. I've been talking about this project for 2 years now. By the time we got around to thinking about bidding for steel doubled. So I went into foot drag mode, to be really honest with you. And maybe it was the wrong thing to do, but for right now, I'm just in foot drag mode. So realistically, these two bridges are probably next year's projects. It'd be one of those things where we'd probably get the steel over the winter, have time to work on it during snow days or when we're not out plowing snow, get everything ready, and then look at possibly, because these are also bridges that we need a contractor to come in and do some of the abutment work. We do all the decks and stuff. And when we get one of these going, Shane, I'll get you out to them. They're an interesting project because we do a significant amount of the work with our own crew. But we also need a contractor, and that'll be a bid process. So yeah, it's not, they're not gonna happen right away. So the next one is 190th Avenue. It's been in my program forever also. It's just a little I wanna say like a 25 or 30 foot bridge. It's one of our few posted bridges in the county as far as posting below 40 tons, I should say. But it's kind of off and forgotten land, and it is on my radar. We just haven't been able to shake the money loose to go after it. So hopefully this will hold true, but you know, time will tell as far as depending on what other things cost, I guess, is what I'll say. 190th Avenue is not a high intensity crucial road where it's at. Obviously there's farmers on it, but it takes a little less traffic than elsewhere. So priority wise, it's probably not right at the top of the list. So the next couple projects are probably the kind of projects I would say are subject to change depending on where we run into cost increases that we weren't expecting. I've got PCC Patching, which is concrete patching, and crack sealing. Crack sealing is probably, while I need to do it, unfortunately it's also one of the things that's easy to kick the can down the road. You should probably do more of it just to seal your pavements up. I'd be the first to admit that, but it's pretty hard when you're spending money on other stuff you think are higher priorities. So it's probably the first thing that would maybe skinny up a little bit. We are looking at a small crack sealing job up on the north end of Highway 99. That wouldn't be a bid, that'll be just me negotiating a price with a contractor. If we do anything else beyond that, it would be a large scale bid project. But it will, realistically, this project probably doesn't get bid until I find out what Bridgeport cost me. That's probably so you're probably looking at the crack sealing as something next year at the earliest. And the concrete patching, we do need to do a little bit larger scale concrete patching job. So exactly when it happens, I'm not sure, but it is a target of mine, and we'll just see how those things progress. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on them because I don't have a lot of details for you at the moment anyway. We have put some prep work and leg work into both of those already, but obviously we're not sitting there on the cusp of doing something. So next page, page 4, top of it, this is one I really wanted to get you by, so at some point when we're looking at a project or something, I'll sling you by. It's kind of in the middle of Timbuktu, so we weren't ever anywhere really near it to get to it. But it is something you need to see in person just to see how much erosion has happened, to get a picture of it. But so that 165th Street Creek Bank Stabilization Project, that's just a spot. I've already met with the landowners. I met with them over the winter time. It's just a spot where over the last 10 years, the creek has just kind of raged and eroded significantly. And we're more or less just we're not gonna reroute the creek, we're not gonna reshape the creek. we're gonna come back in, we're gonna buy right away and come in and just dump a whole bunch of riprap and basically rebuild the creek bank so the water can't keep forcing it. Right now, the creek bank actually lines up to where if it kept going straight, it would go behind the bridge. So, it describes itself better on site than it does from me. So sometime I'll run you by there, but that project, yet again, I'm probably low again because of the cost of trucking at the moment, but that's probably something that I try to bid this summer and probably set it up for a winter job next winter.
Is that the one that has the driveway close to it too?
Yeah. Yep. So, and then after that, you get into some smaller stuff. Intersection lighting, I think I've talked about that before. As the DOT continues to make headway, some of the lights that they had originally they're taking down, or some of the lights we had originally they're taking down. They don't replace those because really all they were a light on a public utility pole that we paid electric bill to have the light on, but so they told us right off the bat. I think we're zeroing in on an LED solar option. Now, I want to keep in mind, these are more like, so when you're driving down the highway, there's something to recognize that there's an intersection. This is not like you drive through town and the intersection's lit up because you're scared of the dark or something. This is for somebody to be able to spot an intersection. So I want to, if you're envisioning an 80-foot tall pole and a light in a $100,000 project, you'll be really disappointed. This is a $10,000 setup with a footing and an LED/solar panel/battery pole. If you come in from Danville and paid attention, or the plant has put some of these up along the highway there. They did get permission to do that. This would be actually very, very similar to what they installed. Slightly different, but not a whole lot. So we're looking at a test one just to see how it goes and everything. We're looking at a test one right now, just a single location. We're gonna do Seven Ponds Road for that one.
Let's think do Terry Road.
Oh, ours has one.
Oh.
But Pleasant Grove Road does have one. Dodgeville Road is what I hear a lot of complaints about.
Yeah, but
Dodgeville
Dodgeville Road,
and
they're not
Seven
done with
Ponds.
construction.
Yeah.
And Seven Ponds Road has never had one, because I've been complained at for that forever,
Oh,
but
yeah,
there was
'cause
never electricity at Seven Ponds Road.
Whenever the park was actually there, my gosh, they had all kinds of reflective things and billboards and
Yes,
everything
and that's
else that
because
people knew.
the Seven Ponds Road, people, since the day I walked in, they've been wanting a light. And back then, solar didn't exist, I mean, for all intents and purposes. And there was, the reason we never put one up was because there was no power. And the cost to put power in there for what they wanted didn't justify it. So, and so we're gonna go ahead, that'll be just a test case. We'll do some more. Dodgeville's one that's come up, but the DOT's not done with construction there. And I'm not sure as heck not doing anything anywhere until they're done and out of the way. Seven Ponds Road, they are done in the area that we're gonna put it in. And so, yeah.
How's the light?
Well, again, it's not great light. You're not gonna do a whole bunch with it. The hope is that it's enough light to make it easier for people to find the intersection. It's not for people to see the intersection when they're at the intersection. It's for people to have something to spot when they're driving down the road. So,
And as Harvest View Farms is having an event, then they know exactly where to turn.
so it's not great light,
Yeah.
but it's light. I'm sure you come in at night at some point and seen those on. They're not gonna rock your world. They're not gonna blind you.
No, but you do notice them.
Yeah, and that's really
As
the
long
goal.
as it marks the, right.
Yeah, you just get an idea of where an intersection is along the highway.
Yeah, I don't wanna sell them as being awesome, because I
No,
don't
I
think
got
as
you.
far as, like, I mean, if you live in town and don't get out a whole lot, they're not gonna be what you think of as far as lighting, as far as intersection lighting. But, if they give a marker for a paved road, so you know when to start slowing down and
Right.
stuff like that, and you're paying attention now in a foggy day, you're probably not gonna see it, or foggy night or whatever, but in most cases, hopefully it will help. So, we won't, I think that's a great question. I'll be the first to admit, we're gonna put one up, And
See
then
what-
we'll see whether we get any negative comments or anything like that, and we'll see, and I'm up and down 61 just personally at night a lot, so I'll be very curious to see if this is what we want or not. But that's why we're doing one. I don't think it'll hurt anything, I just wanna make sure it'll help.
Right.
So, so anyway, that's, and that's,
Do we get any assist from Alliant Energy on any of that stuff?
no.
All right.
No. In fact, that's why we're going to, one of the reasons I wanna go to do a solar LED thing is so that we no longer, you're kinda limited to where you can put it stuff when you work with the utility companies, plus then you get an automatic bill monthly. And I'm hoping these, I have talked to the ammunition plant, they have been happy with what they put in. They haven't had major maintenance issues.
How long have they had them?
I wanna say 3 years now or something like that.
So not long enough to have to replace anything or anything like that?
Not from what I understand. So, now,
It's basically like these stop signs, you know, like when you come into Middletown, you know, they've got that solar on them stop
Yeah.
signs too.
yeah, it's a similar concept.
Just
So, and,
those,
so we'll see, and we'll learn. When we decide we don't like it, we won't do it, but we gotta do something, and it seems, I think it's gonna run us somewhere in the 10 to 12 grand intersection range from what I can tell, and that's not that much in the big scope of things, so I hope it works out this way. So, anyway, that's what, once we get that first one going and up, I'll let you guys know, and again, either you can look at it when you're driving up and down, or I'll drive you by it sometime or something like that. So,
we'll have a night road tour.
a night road tour,
That sounds like fun.
so,
We're gonna need Jim's help for that. He
Yeah.
knows the roads better at night, the gravel ones. Anyways, please
Yep.
continue, Brian.
Next one, Highway 61 approaches. Again, we've talked about this plenty of times. This is simply, and I will be the first to admit, I have no idea what we're gonna get for a bill from the DOT and what that bill's gonna be, because I get a different answer every time I've asked in the past. So I quit asking, because I think we should already have a bill now, so I'm not sure they haven't forgotten. So we'll just see. We're paying for approaches whenever we get billed, all those little 50-foot concrete approaches that they have done some and they will do more. Our goal is that every gravel road intersection, we're gonna have a 50-foot paved approach. I think price-wise, it's a no-brainer for safety for the motor grader operator at a bare minimum. And so that's what we're doing, and it's already in the works. I don't know if this came up before, Shane, but the DOT bids it all as part of their project. We just pay the itemized cost of it. So,
They might forget about it.
you know, they've had a lot of regime change. I'm guessing eventually they're gonna remember, but I don't know. Like I said, I quit asking. We'll deal with it when we get the bill. You'll see this in here until we get a bill.
And if we get a bill, we're gonna argue about it too high.
Well, I don't have a lot of argument. We signed an agreement, but either way.
Sick Tom.
Poor people. So Flint Bottom Road, PCC Paving, if you've been out there, if you go west from Highway 61, it's an asphalt road, until you get almost to Gear Avenue. And then there's just this little piece of concrete. I don't know why it's concrete exactly, and it's old, it's not in great shape. If prices keep going up on our priority projects, this is probably one that goes away. It's just that simple. I will be surprised if this is a project that actually gets done, but it's in here if we decide we have the ability to move forward. It's just, you know, we've rebuilt the Gear intersection, we've rebuilt a good part of Flint Bottom, we've rebuilt a good part of North Gear going into West Burlington. We have the bridge on our radar. This would make a lot of sense. In fact, what would make a lot of sense is to pave all the way from the intersection of Flint and Gear to the concrete they put in on the Highway 61 project, and that would all be concrete. I don't have money for any of that, so so right now I've got a token line item in there, and we'll just see what happens. But that's what that's for. So, all right, page 5. getting down to some of the basic stuff, you're gonna see year in and year out. Rock surfacing, that's our, kind of our pinching projects. That should probably be a little higher for what rock costs, but that's very roughly 5 miles of pinching roads. We kind of are hoping to still target 9 or 10 miles this summer, but I had some extra rock in one of our quarries, so I scaled back on that, and I think going forward you're gonna see that. I think you're gonna see us targeting more along the 4 to 5 mile range. It is really hard I don't know, I guess just in our day-to-day, it's really hard to pull off 9 or 10 miles of that road. It's a labor-intensive project. It commands all of our semis and 2 or 3 motor graders for multiple days, and it's to do our rocking program and everything else we're doing with the equipment and still do 10 miles of that. We have pulled that off over the last 3 years or so for 10 miles, but we're gonna go back to more of a historic total. The other thing is we're not out of the woods, but we've done a whole lot of this, and our worst case scenarios I think have been conquered, and so now we're just gonna keep picking off mile here, mile there, that kind of thing. So that's what that is. I think you guys are all aware of our pinching projects, and I think we've all gotten the phone calls right after we did it, and then a year later they're really darn good roads. So we'll keep that up. So we will probably do more than that total shows, but we'll see how the summer goes. Culvert liners, that's a bigger number than normal. One of the things we're looking at is possibly maybe coming in and doing a handful of them on Seven Ponds Road. Seven Ponds Road is a great example of a road that it's kind of like a seal coat road in town. It's like it started out and it might have been on the edge of town. There might have been fields there at one time with an old farmhouse, and then next thing you know, and it was probably a gravel alley or something, and the next thing you know they seal coat it because another house goes in, and they never really put a lot of forward planning into it, and that's kind of Seven Ponds Road. You know, I'm sure you guys remember, I don't remember it when it was still gravel. It's always been a dead end road. It was, eventually the water park came in at the end of it. And now there's a bunch of nice houses out there, and there's no room. The culverts are all old, and we've already done liners in a couple of them already. It's a paved dead end road, so to put a brand new culvert under a paved dead end road is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare, because you got to get people in and out, and there's nowhere to do it out there. So we're looking at possibly doing kind of a bulk liner thing. It kind of depends on manpower, because the way we do liners, we have a crew that does very good work, not our crew, but a contractor, and they do a great job and everything else. We do the prep work ahead of it to have the site ready for them. And so it kind of depends, and if we feel like we have a couple week window where we can shake our main crew loose to get there ahead of time, and it coordinates with that other crew's schedule. So, but that's why that number's up from, normally I stick about 20 grand in for culvert liners. Sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't. It really, a lot of times it's one of those calls where the bus driver calls and says there's a hole in the road. And so you go look at it and you're like, ooh, okay, and then you start saying, we can do a liner cheaper than we can whatever, so.
Who's the bus driver that calls you?
There are a lot of them. One of them's maybe heavier than the others, but I mean, but.
I want Tom, especially you, to take notice. Tara remembers, she said that was a dirt road.
Back in my high school days, it was a dirt road, and if it started raining, get your butt out of there. So you weren't
And that takes you on down to some other dirt road down around Yellow Springs too. You couldn't go that way.
I never went down that far. We just went back to Seven Ponds where they had the picnic area.
Oh.
Terry wasn't trying to get into those sort of things. Yeah.
It was a crooked dirt road. It wasn't straight like it is now, so.
Yeah, yep, it's got a history, but anyway, and then right away, which I have a generic right away number in every year, just depending on what pops up. First year, this for a first year program, it would normally bother me for as much unknown as there is, but with the climate right now, as far as prices and the other issues, contractor availability. you just, over the next couple of years with the federal money that's supposed to be coming along, and it's not, again, I don't think it's not like twice the money, but it's gonna stretch contractors even further than what they're stretched now with the labor force issue. I mean, it's gonna be a really, really strange time period in construction in the next couple of years. It already is now.
Especially for communities like us. I mean, I think the bigger ones may not feel it as much because they've probably got more construction companies in their community.
I think it's just scale. I think they're all gonna feel it. I really do.
Really?
Well, look at the DOT right now. They've got this paving contract that's already under bid. They gave them 2 years worth of working days. So they have enough working days to roll this work up here. They could roll into next year even, to some small extent. And that contractor went and got a big paving job up around Des Moines somewhere. So come sometime in June, they've already put the DOT on notice that they're moving out for 3 or more 4 months, and they're gonna go work there. And this is gonna come to a halt on their project. So it will be very interesting to see where the balance is, because the other way for all that to happen is they just bid projects higher so they can afford the liquidated damages. I mean, there's 2 different ways to skin that cat. You don't have to be scared of liquidated damages if every contractor out there is just running their prices up in case they have to pay them. And I think we're gonna see some of that also. So, and you got natural inflation, and I'm not so sure that some of that federal money coming isn't going to add to that to some extent.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm sure that this has happened in the past before my time, before my experience, but I think there's a lot of unknowns in construction, and that, my program is very much reflective of that, where I'm not sure that we can do everything we have in there. It just depends on how the money moves. So we will prioritize, we will bid when we know we can do stuff, and then we will adjust depending on where those numbers come in, and go from there. So unless there's any questions on that first year, I'm gonna roll into the green the second year. Start right off with Golf Course Road, PCC Paving. This is a pretty frequent question for me when I cross paths with somebody out there. This is not all of Golf Course Road, first of all, let me say that. This is only the hill. And essentially what I tell people is we're gonna use and abuse it, and then we're gonna replace it. So, and if you drive it, first of all, on that hill, you're not driving 60 mile per hour. It doesn't matter if you're going down or coming up. You're not at a high speed. It's a lot more of a 35 type hill than it is. So it is rough at the joints, but you're not gonna go flying off the road anywhere else. So it can stand to be rough for a little while. But we're gonna use it.
What are you thinking on that road? 3 years?
So I'm hoping to pave it in between, I'm hoping to get it paved sometime right after that, the T17, the Dry Branch project wraps up. I can't do it before that because I need it as a detour there.
Right.
And so realistically, looking at all of that, I have a hard time, it's probably a 2024 project.
And just off the top of your head, I mean, you probably know, but how long do you think a project like that's gonna be, just to get that hill, that piece? Because it's still in a weird spot, it's just
I'd
not-
say it's actually gonna be a little bit longer than if you just had a straight stretch somewhere that was the exact same length. It's probably 6 weeks. I just very, very roughly. It's a little more labor intensive because you got that retaining wall alongside. It's tight quarters. There's not a lot of room. And then you get to that subdivision up on top, so you've gotta think about parking or maybe a temporary road in the right of way to let them drive in and out kind of a thing or something. So, yeah, I still think it's
get a
gonna
lot
be
of
a
people
lot
that
like.
ask me about that road.
Huh?
I get a lot of people that ask me about
Yeah,
that road.
I still think it's a lot like our Pleasant Grove project or our Geode project. They both have similar complications, and I still think probably 6-ish weeks, give or take. I can't see it longer than 6 weeks. I'd probably say 4 to 6 if somebody put me on the spot. There's a lot of handwork down by the 99 intersection that would have to be done too, and all that. So, anyway, it is on our radar. I have assured people that when they've asked, but I've also told them they're gonna have to live with it. If we can get it done in '24, that's perfect, because later on in here, I'll mention a big dollar project on 99 and 25. So it would fit really nice in between construction projects. So, but since it's getting used as a, if nothing else, a de facto detour during our dry branch project, we will not go in and screw with it while we're doing Highway 99. We are redoing the intersection during that dry branch project. That intersection is getting repaved. So 99 is concrete, will be concrete at that point. So it will get closed very, very shortly, as short a time frame as we can keep, it's probably a better way to put it, during that project, and then open back up. But as far as the hill goes, I made the decision that we were not gonna do the hill at the same time as that intersection, because I did not want that dragging out. Just, it was an unknown I wasn't willing to gamble with. So, so anyway, that's where that's at, and, so, next page, page 6, Middletown reconstruct curb and gutter and intakes and stuff. I don't have a full scale of what this project might be, but I know in Middletown, one of the things we're gonna look at in 2025 is an asphalt project, kind of on Old 34 and on through. And we have some intakes. At a bare minimum, we have some ancient intakes in Middletown that they were, of course, DOT intakes, and then they went to Middletown, and then Middletown chose not to keep the road, so it's now our road. And so we may use, prior to that asphalt job, we may use that as a local job to come in and at least at a minimum get those intakes rebuilt, reconstructed, and in better shape. We might do some curb and gutter reconstruction. We'll see. This project we won't start diving into till probably surveying maybe this fall or winter and dive into it for design and stuff. So we're a little ways in advance of it. Exactly what it's gonna look like, I'm not sure. And obviously what it looks like depends on what also then relates to what the costs are. So point being is it would be work that we could get done ahead of time. So hopefully when the asphalt project comes along, it's as just a blend of an asphalt project as possible. Asphalt contractor comes in, does asphalt and gets out. That's kind of the hope of that.
It'd be nice if they took that asphalt out between the two medians so they can pull in the cases without falling in a hole.
Yeah, and we will look at all of that.
Yeah.
Exactly what we want for layout and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, every time I see Orrin, bitches about that water, you know. I said, you guys are the ones that did that. So then I asked him, well, when are you gonna pay that bill for all the cement that you screwed up for us?
Oh, yeah.
What did he say?
I remember.
Don't know anything about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
They never did pay that bill, did they?
No, and I'm guessing they won't.
I was gonna say, weren't they supposed to pay for that?
Anyway, so that's the Middletown project. The next two projects are, I would probably guess, we'll probably bid them together. They'll probably be bid together. They will probably not be constructed at the same time, because I don't think I want both of those roads closed at the same time. But both those are both bridge projects. They're probably full deck replacements. One of those is on North Gear. That's that kind of what I would call the culmination of rebuilding North Gear. And the other is on Upper Flint. So if you go east from 61, you got one of them. Go west from 61, you got the other one. So, and they are, as far as bridges that need deck work but not replacement, they are absolutely top on our list. If they were any worse, they'd be, in fact, if, and I'm not saying this happened, but if you came and said we got 1.3 million of ARPA money, we'd probably go do one of these bridges with ARPA money along with the replacement kind of thing. These are, as far as rehab work, these are far and away number 1, number 2 on our list, and there's a close number 3 in here also. So it's just one of those things. or we would go after number 3 and then bid number 1 and 2 together still as a package project or something like that. So you don't see a lot of savings bidding them as a package project. What you do save is a little bit of mob cost because the contractor's sitting in one spot with a crane, and as soon as he buttons up and gets the road open, he can just move his crane over and do the other one, so you're a lot closer. But other than that, it's not like they can close both. I don't want both those roads closed at the same time. So,
You know what's gonna happen when you fix that one on your avenue? The college isn't gonna have anything to write about.
oh, they'll find something. So those are probably deck replacements. I would also mention on the bottom page there's a deck patching project. So I've already told you this, but I'll say it publicly. You know, we had 8 bridges chain dragged. So consultant came in, we spent about 12 grand and had a consultant come in, and they did chain drags and delineated everything that needs patched, or what we basically identified what kind of work we need to do on these 8 bridges. 4 of those are in here in the actual program. 3 of them are deck projects, and that 4th one is the one on North 99 we've already talked about. So those were past a patching type project. The other 4, actually, I have to say we were pleasantly surprised. They were able to just be a patching project. So what we will eventually try to do is put together a bid patching project, bid it out, and have a contractor come in and do. And this would be, if you ever saw some of the work they did on some of these overpasses a couple of years ago, over the 4-lane, the DOT had them done, I believe. I don't know if that was city or DOT actually, but anyway, this would be something similar to that, where they'll come in, identify certain locations, which are already semi-identified from our chain drag, and they'll either be partial depth, or if it goes all the way through, they'll go all the way through, clean it all out, form up the bottom, and re-pour that patch. You know, so you got to work with the steel. You got to leave the steel in place, and so that's what this would be. And we need to do this. So this would probably be, even though it's a small dollar amount in the big scope of things, this is one of those things that we will reorganize our funds, if at all possible, to make sure this project eventually gets put together and out for a bid. And it probably needs to be done. It's in here for this year, but it's one of those projects where if we can get plans together and we go bid a project and maybe we save some money, we feel like we can go earlier, we'll go after this a little earlier than later. So, but right now it's in the 2nd year of the program. Top of page 7, Augusta Bridge repair, or Bridgeport repair. This is us reimbursing Lee County for a project. This is their bridge to basically inspect and oversee. There's joints on both ends of the bridge that need some work on it. They're still identifying how much work and the cost and everything. They don't think it's going to be as extensive as original, so I'm hoping that this 100 is not 100. I'm hoping it's more like 50, I guess is what I'm hoping for. But they'll put together plans, they'll bid it, they'll communicate with us, and then we will either pay our half towards directly to the contractor when it comes along, or we'll reimburse Lee County for our half, however it all comes along. So when we get closer, I'll let you guys know, but this is just out there, and next one down, Highway 61 approaches, no different than I talked before. As we move along to the north, we're gonna pay for approaches. This is gonna be a theme for the next 10 years at some point, because we're gonna do that all the way up and down the road where we need to. And the nice thing about this, to keep in mind, is that if we don't get billed for that at some point, let's just say we get billed next year instead of this year, we're not going and spending that money. We're budgeting appropriately, and we'll move it into the following year. So it's not like we'll just take that 70 and do something else with it. We'll stay on top of it and have it in a budget for whenever that comes due. With all the unknown with their schedules, it's pretty hard to know exactly what year to put it in. So,
I think I've asked this before, but how much is like each approach?
You know, Leia,
Is it too
I would have to
complicated
probably
answer?
look back and see what it was the last go around, but yeah, and I knew that at one time off the top of my head.
It's okay, I ask weird questions sometimes.
No, it's not a weird question at all, it's just, it's been a year since I looked at that number. You know, something, I wanna say 15 grand an approach, but I'm not sure about that. So maybe let me look back through some emails and get you a number. Cause I think I have an email somewhere from the DOT that I can get you a rough number at least. It will not be dead on, but a rough number.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So, I have your email, so I'll try to go back and search my emails and find it.
Okay.
So, like I said, I knew that number perfectly 5 years ago, but I haven't revisited it forever. Okay, so Meeker's Landing culvert, again, this is we'll see. I mean, I've said it, we all met down there, we know the topic, we know the location. I've made it clear, it is not a priority project for me. I didn't mince any words about that. I said that if we're gonna do something on Meeker's, we'll try to do the culvert first. So we will see what things cost, and as we move forward, this is in there, and we'll see. It may get kicked back. The culvert that's there is not in imminent failure concern. In fact, it's in reasonable shape as far as a corrugated culvert. But I am looking possibly at maybe eventually doing some sort of a milling project on that road to try to help the ride on it. And so if we were gonna do that, we would try to do this first. And that way we could just mill straight through that area. So I didn't do any more than just take a wild swing at even the cost of it. It won't be a cheap project, I can tell you that. When you dig up a concrete road, which is a pretty deep hole when you think about how the elevation's out there, and then you try to lay a new pipe in what will be standing water, it will not be a cheap project. And yeah, like I said, you guys know where I'm at on this, so it's in here, but there's not a guarantee it will be in the second year of our program when it gets done. I do believe we will eventually do it, but I would not guarantee it'll be in the second year of our program. And then there's another PCC patching job. I'll be the first to admit, I can't tell you what things are gonna cost in May. So I have no idea if I'll have the money to do a PCC patching job in next year or not. So it's in there. And when I'm no different than our department head, only I might live it a little bit more than some other people as far as just because of all the big projects and all the moving costs. I'm always looking, at least budget-wise, over about 1 or 2 years to see how things project. And so it's in there. I know I've accounted for it. But I also know that if something runs high this year, next year it could come out. And I know that over about a 2-year window, I've got to be able to balance. I don't ever have to really live in 1 year, but I got to pretty solidly live in 2 years because things move so much for me. I mean, I'm probably the biggest budget amendment going on for Cheryl coming up, and that's all just because of cost increases, and then it's also because of certain projects getting done at certain times and stuff like that. But so.
What is a yard now, around 200?
Concrete?
Yeah.
I believe it's running 150 to 175 roughly.
That's not bad, that's what I thought.
So we actually just did, I'll tell you what, we just did a patch out in front of the office, and when I get that concrete bill, I'll let you know. But that's, I believe it's running 150 to 175, but we don't see the direct yardage price most of the time because it comes as part of a combined bill, so it's not cheap. It might be a little cheaper for a larger patching job because there's more quantity there. It's not, you're not just ordering 5 yards of concrete at once kind of a thing. So, page 8, rock surfacing, culvert liners, and right-of-way, recurring themes. That rock surfacing again is our pinching projects. So I'm gonna jump to the bottom of that page on page 8. I've alluded to a couple big asphalt jobs or a couple big construction jobs for fiscal year 2025. This is the first one of the two. This is Highway 99, and it's basically overlaying the remainder of the road that we haven't touched surface-wise to this point, at least since I've been here. Of course, it was a DOT road before that. It's rough, it needs it. It'll survive until 25, but it's not in perfect condition. We have this is an example of where swap went away. Originally, this project was gonna have swap money, 1.5 million, it's actually 1.4 something, of swap money in it. Well, by now, swap won't exist, so that will be federal money. It's still money, and we still have it already committed to this project. We've already done the application, we've already been awarded. This is the STBG money that runs through regional planning. So anyway, we've already got that. We will use farm to market for the balance of it. I'm hoping like crazy that by 2025, or by the time we bid this, that maybe oil prices will be back down a little bit and asphalt prices will be back down a little bit, and this will be I won't need to take this $3.5 million job and make it a $4 million job, but it's 3 years out, so time will tell. So,
Can't you use wind instead of oil in that coverage?
maybe solar and wind.
Yeah.
So, or they'll just ban all paving at some point and tell us to find something more environmentally friendly. So, maybe styrofoam, I don't know.
You know what socialists used before they used candles? Electricity.
There you go. So it's a big project. It's 11 miles. It's a mill and fill. It's not extravagant, but it's an 11-mile project of asphalt. Is a big project for us. But it'll basically run from Meekers all the way down to Burlington. Obviously skipping the little bit of concrete we're gonna do as part of dry branches and stuff like that. So, so anyway, that's on our radar, and it will happen. We will make sure that happens, so. The next one is a piggyback off of that one. So my hope is, I keep using the word hope because it's a whole lot of money lined up for one fiscal year, but my hope is to tie together two projects during that bid. They will not be one project bid together because I don't want the federal money and the federal rules to apply to the whole thing when I don't have to. So my hope is to line my ducks up in a row and tie together Old 34 for an asphalt project also at the same time. I throw $3 million in there for that. That is also not a lot of money for the mileage that is on Old 34. My hope is again to run all the way from West Burlington clear out, to basically where we hit the 4-lane on the other side of Danville.
Is that just 6 miles?
Well, it's 6 miles when you take out the cities. You take the edge of West Burlington, then Danville's its own town. But you also, it's not 6 miles in the overall cost because some of that's 4-lane. And we don't in this program you don't double your 4-lane in the mileage, but in your cost you double it. So.
It's 4 miles from Danville to Middletown.
So
then you got a mile, almost a mile on out to the highway, 3/4 mile.
Yeah. I would say it's roughly 6 miles, Tom. I'd have to double check.
It just seems farther to me. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you're right, yeah.
Well, and I think this software, these days when it puts in, I don't think we used to put these in. Now I think it self-calculates the length when you put it in there, I think, so.
West Burlington city limits, their city limits is there with the truck stop, isn't it?
Yeah, just on the west side of the truck stop.
And that's about 8 miles in. All the way through there, from there out, clear out to new highway 34 through Danville.
Yeah, maybe it's, I don't know, I'd have to look at it, so. I'm comfortable with my estimate, because that part I did. I didn't do the measuring,
Okay.
other than during my estimating. So, I don't know if I can sit there and defend 6 miles, but, now, here's the one thing I'll see. It may be a little bit longer because the description shows the Danville city limits. My hope is to go on out to the 4-lane. So there might be a segment on the other side of Danville that
You're
needs to
okay
be added
with
in.
just the city limits, and that would be.
So
6
that,
months.
as I see that, that might be why it's a
Yeah.
little shorter than I'm thinking, but, and if I can't financially handle it, we'll stop somewhere. Now, funding wise, again, I'm gonna try to throw another 2 million from our farm to market account. So when I'm done with this year, I will have used up the goodie in our farm to market account, which is why you have it, but, and then I'm hoping to throw local, $1 million of local money towards this to make up the total for about a $3 million job. It probably should be closer to a $4 million job, or at least a $3.5 million job, so,
You can stack farm to market money?
I'm sorry?
You can stack farm to market dollars?
Oh, you can stack any dollars.
Okay.
Yeah, you can, for instance, again, the federal aid one for Highway 99, I have to have 20% of some other funding in it because of the requirement for matching that money. Clearly, we're nowhere near 20% because we're putting 2 million of farm to market money into it, but, yeah, you can stack, it's almost uncommon we don't stack money anymore, other than sometimes bridges.
Okay.
So, all right, so that's a big year. So we'll just, as we get year by year closer to it, I need that local money to be available. So again, when I start talking about projects that may not happen, I mentioned about 2-year balance and how if I spend more this year, I might cut something next year. Well, I've also done where I cut this year because I need the money next year. It's one of those things where you better be looking 3 years in both ways so you can make sure your money's gonna be available. So, it's a constant job, let's just say that. And credit to Becky because she's kind of the great overseer of our money, so. Next one down, South Prairie Grove, actually I'll just go to the next 3. South Prairie Grove Road HMA, Dodgeville Road HMA, and Summer Street HMA. So those are all 3 what I'll call small asphalt jobs. The odds of me having another $9 million or $900,000 of local money to throw at 3 local jobs after I put $1 million towards the Highway 34 project are probably slim, but they're in there. And if I can make it happen, it would obviously be the best possible year to do it because it would be a separate bid for those 3 projects because they'd be exclusively locally funded. But when you're bidding $6 million plus of asphalt work in the county, you get whatever your prices are at the time, you're going to get the best possible scenario of that price. Because that's enough asphalt that you can get competition from other companies. Because they can move in and set up a portable plant and justify it because of the amount of product. So realistically, I doubt that we can get asphalt on all 3 of those roads at the same time, but they're in here and we'll just find out when we get there. So.
Chairman.
Great, now we can cover the important stuff.
When you do
Dude, I
that,
love these.
South Prairie Grove Road, you're gonna have a certain lady call you, why can't you come on back a little
I'm-
farther?
Very well aware. Oh, I've already had those calls this spring. So,
Well, if he could extend Dodgeville Road another 400 or 500 feet, I'd appreciate it.
yeah.
I can't believe he's been dogging you like this all these years. The knife.
Shouldn't live there yet.
Yeah.
M&M chocolate break.
Chocolate break.
Yeah, back to what I was saying though, dude, I love the way, I don't know what program you got to set this up, but just the breakdown of not just the estimates, but where the money's coming from and all of that, dude, and the color coding with the map.
And
I really
again,
appreciate that, I really do.
Credit to Becky and all that. So the DOT software, which we have no choice but using, is the underlying look of that. And then we take it, once we get it all built, she takes it, pulls it into her own computer and has it converted all to Excel. And then she she forces it into the color coding stuff, because the one you guys are gonna sign, or the chairman's gonna sign or whatever, it's just black and white, plain Jane, looks like that, but you can't follow it quite as well if you don't, I mean, I live it, so I can follow it, but when you look at it once a year, if it were all black and white,
It would make it tougher, but the color coordination, dude, again, that does, it just makes it easy to read. Yeah, it makes it easy to read.
Yeah, and that's, again, Julie kind of built that system, and Becky's done a nice job of carrying it forward, so. It also makes it to where if every so often, it's been a while since it happened, but somebody will get on a kick. They'll get on a kick about wanting the road paved. That's typically when it comes up. And they'll come at it from a very, it's kind of, it entertains me, actually.
That they pay more taxes than anybody
Well, they
else?
start with the taxes thing, but then they start to come at it as, well, clearly I know your priorities better than you do thing. So then they'll say, I wanna see your 5-year program. And I'm like,
Or you get people asking for that?
There's
Every once in a
more
while?
than me
But every
here.
once in a while, I'm surprised that
Rarely.
anybody
but
would even
they'll
ask.
wanna see your plan. They may not know it's called a program, I wanna see your plans, or I wanna see
Road
whatever.
plans.
And it's, because you can send it to them with the color, as long as things haven't changed drastically, because this is a draft, and let's face it, in 3 weeks, something could change. But, and you can send it to them, and it's very rare that they call back, or they come back and say, well, that's a waste of money, or that's a waste of money. I mean, I'm not saying they know the whole thing, it's just, when they say that, they're not assuming you're gonna give them anything. They're assuming that that's gonna be their point of argument, that you're just
Jerry, I
blowing,
think
you're
you're gonna get
blowing
them
them off.
too.
And
Jim said I could.
when you all hand them a full color map and a multi-page thing that they don't understand.
Yeah, nothing to say to that.
At all.
Nothing to say to that.
Most of the time, it's a little quiet.
Man, Terry's got a donut, didn't bring one for everybody else.
They're back there, Jim
That
brought
dog-
them for everyone.
That doggone Johnson.
Do you want me to
You
bring
have
one
to
for you?
stretch
If
Jim?
Kevin was here, I would've had a donut.
Isn't your butt going numb?
Hey, there's an entire thing of them in there.
If only Kevin was
I'm
here.
going to get myself a donut.
I bet you I'd have had a donut then. Who cares, man? What the heck is going on around here?
Brian, you made my article for this week much easier.
Oh.
Because I was like, how am I gonna do top 5 roads? But now I could do 3 projects that might not happen. I got the sugar to stay awake right now.
Huh?
I've got the sugar
All
to
right.
stay awake right now. There
Right.
we go.
Oh.
That's a listicle for Michelle.
Brian, it's the presentation.
Uh-huh. I wish they would put the schedule out for this weekend.
They still haven't, huh?
No, I got an email and it was an apparel order. I thought, ooh, there's a schedule, and it said apparel order. I'm like, I don't care about the apparel. I want to know.
Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We get off Friday, 4-day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you eat? You got donuts?
Donuts in there.
They're in there. Jim brought donuts.
No.
Need a little sugar high to keep you
No,
awake?
I'm fine.
Shane, this is your fault.
Slow down, son.
This is your fault, Shane. Oh, Lord.
Here's your donut, your highness. Anything else you want?
Left off, you're welcome to go back.
Top of page 10.
Page 10.
Page 10.
Assume you got through the top secret stuff.
Yeah, we
Did
knocked
you
that
say
out.
top of page 16?
10, I think.
Oh,
Close to
Sarah went,
16.
Sarah
Close.
went.
Topic 16, means adjourned.
At least we know that Sarah's done.
Yeah, she was done a while ago.
Hey, I am very interested in this.
You don't have to lie for him.
No.
I just want to get this clarified before we go any further. How much further do they have, does he need to put concrete down on Dodgeville Road? How much further does he?
Asphalt,
Asphalt?
probably about what, another 500 feet?
Not very far.
Yeah, not very far.
I just want to document that. Okay, please continue.
Top page, this is, earlier I mentioned the top 2 priorities for bridge deck work. This would be easily the top third. They're all very close to each other. But this one definitely would be a third placer. Danville Road, the bridge over Flint Creek, actually I think the only bridge on Danville Road. So very similar project. Because of the system it's on, it does become an 80-20 project, so it'll have federal bridge funds in it, but it'll have a 20% match of farm to market money. So that's why that funding looks a little bit different off to the side. I believe those bridges earlier, Upper Flint and on North Gear, they were 100% federal bridge money because of the system that they're on, they can be 100%. This has to be 80-20. So anyway, that's, you know, of those 8 bridges we talked about that I had chain drag, 3 of them are in here. This is the third one of the deck work, and the 4th one is the ARPA funding bridge. So that kind of is the culmination, and the other 4 are addressed in that patching project I mentioned way back when. So kind of the culmination of the work that we need to do on those. Second project, Meeker's Landing Road, PCC, that's not meant to be PCC Paving. That's meant to be, I still gotta do some research on thickness, so we're not there yet, but if I feel like I have enough concrete, it's a project I'd like to do. If you ever driven down there with anything that's not a car, or an SUV, I guess, it's a very rough ride. And if I feel like I have enough concrete, I thought about doing a fine grade or fine milling job is what I'll call it, to try to get the ride improved. It actually will help the life of the concrete in the long run too, but I gotta make sure I have enough thickness of concrete there. If you've been out onto West Avenue and
Turned out pretty good.
South Gear, about by the hospital, very, very similar approach. Probably without some of the patching, and they put rebar in some of theirs. I probably wouldn't spend that money in this situation, but point being, very similar project. So they actually contacted me when they did that, and were hoping I could throw a project with theirs to help get better bid prices. And at that time, I just couldn't justify spending the money on Meeker's, which would be the one I would probably go after.
Do you remember how much they spent on that? I can't remember how much they spent on that bill job.
I have their bid tab on my computer. I don't remember what it costs, but I have their bid job.
You think that's over 6 inches out there?
We did a patch down there this spring, and where we patched it was 8 inches.
8 inches?
Would I bet on that elsewhere? No, and that's why I'm telling you I need to do a little bit of research to make sure I've got the thickness, because if it's only 6 inches of concrete, which is what the plans show,
Yeah, you
but
can't
if it's
do
only
it.
6 inches, that doesn't leave me enough thickness to gamble and do a mill.
Yeah.
I'd be too worried about falling apart.
How many semis hit that road on during the summer, especially during the summertime?
Oh, year round.
They're just beating.
Other than when the river shut down for 3 or 4 months in the winter, it's got semis constantly. I wouldn't even be able to begin to tell you how many.
Looks like they're riding bucking horse.
Yeah, and it feels that way when you're in there.
I
So
know we
could
saw
you-
that when we went down to look at that one slough with, what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl?
Cause a couple of semis
Yep.
went by at that time.
You was with us, wasn't you?
Would you mill that during the wintertime then? Is that how you try to do that, or?
No, it's a 1-lane project, so it could happen whenever.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
off down there, Bert?
Yeah.
It would just require traffic control to make sure that we keep traffic flowing.
But you gotta have 8 to do that, right?
You don't know how many
What you
semis
said,
go
or-
down there, call Bert Stonehoff up.
They roll, man, they roll heavy, and they roll fast too.
I think I'd want at least 7. I don't know that I care about 8, and I don't think it'll be 8. I don't wanna go down to less than 6 inches. So, but like I said, we'll do a little bit of more exploratory, and if I think I'm comfortable, we'll go that route, and if I don't think I am, this will go away. I mean, it's pretty simple on that front. The only way to get that smooth out from there would basically be to come in and do an asphalt, a double layer asphalt overlay on top of it to eventually get rid of it, and so, we'll see. It's probably more of a wish project than a high, I mean, it's been that way for a long time, so, but we'll see. And then the last couple, rock surfacing, which of course is pinching, culvert liners, and there's a small crack sealing line item in this one, and then right away. So I'm not gonna jump to any of those. I think you guys know how I handle that. Normally I save my 5th year, so we're gonna roll into the 4th year unless anybody has questions, the purple year. Normally I save my 5th year for kind of, I'm not gonna say pie in the sky projects, but the 5th year is normally, and I will say it again here in a couple minutes, where I put stuff that I know we need to do, but I don't think we can afford. The 4th year, it kind of creeps into the 4th year, especially with all the unknowns we've talked about. But I'm gonna lead right off the bat with Pleasant Grove Road PCC Paving.
West.
This would be from the quarry to Highway 61. So we're doing the hill as we speak, and so you know, on the hill, they were gonna try to get to a point of doing a proof roll, which basically means if they get that far, that they'll get the dirt all into the grade and the elevation it needs to be, and they'll bring in a loaded truck, and they'll run it down the grade to see if they have any soft spots. They'll identify any soft spots, they'll pour those down, and that'll just be a thicker rock base in that location for stability purposes. They did the proof roll on Geo this morning, and they were gonna do a little core out on that, and they should be putting rock out there actually as we speak. So just to give you Geo, yeah. So give you an idea, those are moving along. And sometime in the next week or two, I'll throw a project tour on. It won't be a lengthy one, and it'll just be one of those where if your schedules work, we'll go, and if it doesn't, we won't. It won't. But if you see it show up, it'll just be if you got a chance, any of you. I mean, it doesn't have to be all 3 of you, but any of you have a chance, we'll just run out and I'll show you progress, and then I'll run you back, kind of a thing. So if you see those show up, pretty much from now through the summer, that's what I'm after. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But anyway, Pleasant Grove Road paving. If you go out and look at Pleasant Grove Road, I would say east of the quarry is in worse shape than west of the quarry, but neither direction is real special anymore. I'm hoping to handle west of the quarry with some patching, but I don't know how long that is, but it's not a short road. So right now what you see in here is east of the quarry, and this would basically be filling the gap from the project we're doing. We wouldn't be tearing anything out that we're doing now, and it would connect over to Highway 61. That's the goal of this project. I cannot sit here and tell you that right at the moment I can guarantee you that by then I will have $2 million of FM money or $1.5 million of local money to line up in 2026. But I will tell you that that is one of our priority projects at some point in the future. It's been in our program for quite a while. This is the first time it's jumped out of the 5th year and moved up to the 4th year. So, and it may hover in the 4th year for a couple years. It'll just depending on what we see funding going to that. And the other thing is one of my goals is to get rid of curb on that road, on that east of the quarry. West of the quarry, it's not realistic, but east of the quarry it is. But there's a fair amount of drainage work to be done, some ditching to be done, some stuff like that, and we have not yet dove into all of the true details of how to make all that work. We'll need to get with farmers, we'll need to identify culverts. There's at least 1 or 2 culverts that have to be replaced when that all happens. There's a lot of stuff before a paving project. So, but it is one that's on my radar.
When it comes to patching, do you do that by complaint as well? I mean,
I don't do much of anything by complaint, to be really, I mean, in all honesty, I don't function by complaints. We take complaints, we receive complaints, but we don't let complaints drive how we do business.
Right on, but I'm just saying, if you
So-
said that there was a road, you got a couple complaints that there was a road with a great big huge hole. You
Sure.
understand? I mean, and it's not to be repaired or patched or whatever for another year or two. Do you look at those things, or is it, they're just screwed? It's
We
just-
absolutely look at them. And we will go get, if somebody calls about a big hole that we weren't aware of. I think this happened a couple weeks ago on a paved road. And it just, I don't know, showed up, it got bigger, I don't know what the deal was. And so we went out almost immediately with asphalt, cold patch, and got it filled up. If we can stay ahead of it with patch, it's probably gonna be a cold patch hole for a long while. We have our share, just like every city and every county has them. But if we can't stay ahead of it, then we would absolutely say, okay, when are we gonna do our next, a little bit of patching, maybe not a big full-scale patching, but we do $20,000 or $30,000 of small patching with daily every year. We just did our first one here a couple weeks ago, and we did another one on Meekers, something like that, where you're just doing a panel, basically, something like that. If we just can't stay ahead of it, we can't win the battle, then we'd probably try to schedule our crew to come in, saw cut it, do the removal, and have Daily come in after us and do a patch there.
That's what people asked me about that, and I told them, I said, if it's that bad, take a picture of it and send it to me. Yes, and I'll send it through. Because there's supposedly a couple of spots on Pleasant Grove Road that are so bad that I got one of my members complaining. It's the same road I take, and it's a bad road, but I'm like, where's that spot out that's so bad that needs to be addressed right
There's
away?
been some patching done on it.
Yeah, we just did cold patching up there within the last week. So, and a lot of those, they're just get patched again when they start to wear out. I mean, it's, so, yeah, I mean, if somebody's got something, always feel free to send me it doesn't even have to be you could just say, somebody texted about a hole west of the highway, or west of 160th, or Terry's bitching again about something, or whatever it is.
But I'm gonna see what it is, because sometimes the complaint, it doesn't line up, and again, I got complaints about Pleasant Grove, and I'm supposed to, they may be watching.
Yeah, there were some holes that were showing
Yeah,
up.
there were,
But
but
they've been there patching and stuff, so.
There's some other spots that are.
In a heartbeat, we welcome people hollering, because we may not be aware of it, or we may just need to look at it again, because we did it a month ago and it needs done again. I mean,
we all, I know Brian does, I always respond to complaints if somebody said, I've got a problem on my road on whatever it is, I'll drive by it. If I can, I'll ask Brian, he'll have somebody drive by it that day, or depending on what time it is. The next day, he'll get back to me and say, yeah, there's something there. They said, we'll take care of it, or this isn't as big a problem, because you have to prioritize. And people are people, you and me both. And if it's in front of your road, it's a big problem, so you can't respond to every complaint, but
if somebody calls and has a complaint and they want to call back, they'll get a call back. Most people that have something, they just want to tell you, and then they don't want to call back, they just want to pass it on. I won't tell you we've never dropped the ball, but we try to call people back that want to call back. Now, if you guys call me with something or text me with something, then typically we'll get a look at it. Either me or one of my superintendents will look at it. Once I have a better idea, I will text you, because you guys got a hold of me. And if you want to pass it on, you can pass it on or not. So that way you know that it at least got looked at. And I'll text you, I'll tell you in general what the story is. I mean, I may say, I texted Tom the other day and said, we're never going to make this guy happy. And we're not.
Some people you can't.
It's just the fact.
he's talking about Mrs. Broker.
Tom's been trying to make her happy for years.
So, I mean, but we will absolutely, that's our job, is to go take a look. We may not agree with its importance compared to what somebody thinks, but that's okay. I mean, that's just the way it is. Or it may be something that, yeah, it needs some cold patch, and maybe it's a week before we get there, but we'll put it on the radar, and the next time we have a couple bodies. Speaking of that, if you guys know of any college kids that need summer work, we're gonna be looking for a couple kids to hire in our shop. So.
How about 14
and I-
year-olds?
I say that because, well, they'd be scooping up dead animals and cold patching.
You aren't gonna get Miss Brooker to do that.
No, I say that, we don't advertise, we want kids to come looking. That's, if they're not willing to look for work, we don't probably want them working. And so, but I say that because it ties to the cold patching thing. There is no better season for cold patch getting done than 2 months in the summer when you have 2 summer kids. Because that's what they do for about 50 to 60% of their time is they go cold patch, which then takes our bodies and lets them do their job.
Right on.
When it's our bodies and there's no summer kids, unfortunately cold patching fits in when you're shorthanded or you're in between projects or something, otherwise your bodies are busy and it's hard to shake it loose. So it's one of those things. But yeah, anytime let us know or tell them to call my office. Don't ever hesitate to do that.
Dude, I've got no complaint with the response. I've told you about stuff before, and
Yeah.
I've gotten right at it after it, and some stuff I didn't even have to tell you, that it was just on the plan, and I got a pat on the back saying, thanks for getting my road done. But I was just curious on the Pleasant Grove, because that did come up again, and I drove it, and I know, especially west of, west all the way to, what is that, Danville?
Danville Road.
Yeah.
There's-
It's got some spots, but it's still, I've seen some spots that are.
There's a spot west there that's fairly long and fairly ugly, that's beyond just a cold patch type of thing, and we need to do a big concrete patch there. And if I can piece together the money, that's one of the areas we're gonna go after. But it's that area there, and it's rough. It's probably a $40,000 or $50,000 thing. It's not.
Yeah, it's not gonna be cheap,
It's
yeah.
not a whim, and so unfortunately, it's gonna be rough for a little bit, and it's just the way it is. Because it's not one you can just go take a load of cold patch out and make it perfect. So yeah, we look at them one by one. So we've got more of them that we know about than we can afford to do with.
I'm just saying, you know, now that you've got the road closed, I'm gonna get a whole lot more complaints about the other side of,
Our goal is to make sure you get more complaints. That's what we try to do.
Thanks, bud.
Yep, anything we can do to help. Bottom of the page, Golden Road, it's a bridge. I haven't had enough time to dive into this. I would love this to be a culvert, but a box culvert, but I think hydraulically I'm gonna learn that I think there's too much water for me to put a culvert there. So unfortunately, it's kind of in the middle of Timbuktu. But it's probably gonna have to be a small, regular, old-fashioned bridge. I think it's too big to do a beam and slab like we do in-house, and I think it's too big that's why you see a 600 there. I'll be shocked if I can afford that, but it's in there.
It's at an angle too, doesn't it, where the creek runs at an angle under?
The creek runs at an angle. This is one where I had you guys out there a couple of years back. The guys did a really nice, maybe I'll run you through there sometime. We got a FEMA project on this one. They did a really nice gabion basket wall on the northeast corner of it. It looks really good. I'll have to show it off again sometime. Anyway, it's on our radar. It's a bridge. You guys probably aren't aware of it because it's the first year it's really come into the program. But we'll just see. I'm pretty sure I can afford it right there, but it's there. And obviously in that year that we were just looking at, there's not a whole lot for projects. Obviously Pleasant Grove is kind of the dominant project. When you spend that kind of money, you're not gonna have a lot of other projects. Then you got rock surfacing / pinching, culvert liners, and right-of-way. So, any questions at all on the purple year, 4th year? All right. We'll jump into the final year, the 5th year, 2027. This is, I'm gonna give my disclaimer because I have to give my disclaimer, and it's even more important because Shane's only been here, this is only his 2nd year, and he has been hit up about the projects that we've all been hit up about wanting my road paved or wanting this stuff done, and I think Shane's done a nice job of handling those because he always calls me and says, what do you think about this? And most of those are something we've already been hit up on, they're just finally getting to shame. I mean, I don't mean that bad, it's just, it is the progression of politics to some extent. The new guy tends to get dinged on some of the stuff that never went where they wanted to go. So we'll just start right off, Beaverdale Road, PCC Paving. If you go out Beaverdale Road, you go north and you get to Flint Bottom Road, all of a sudden you go from asphalt to concrete. And from there, all the way out to where it turns to gravel is a concrete road. We did a big patching job on it about 4 years ago, something like that. It's one of those roads where it's rough, but it's just fine. It's drivable. It's not perfect. But all of those curb and gutter roads, if you drive a curb and gutter road and it hasn't been touched, keep in mind they're all about the same age. So when we sit here and talk about Pleasant Grove Road needing a bunch of money spent on it, we just did 2 miles of Flint Bottom and we couldn't afford to do the whole thing. All of that curb and gutter is about the same age. It's within 5 years of, Whitey put all that in the early 80s. Very little of it was in the late 70s. So it's all within about 5 years of the same age. A lot of it's within about 3 or 4 years of the same age. So when you start thinking like that, it'll scare the holy hell out of you because we can't afford it. And it's coming due. And those roads like you just talked about on Pleasant Grove west of the quarry, Shane, we almost have no choice but to do some major patching. It doesn't make the whole road great. Just like the little bit of patching we did on Bridgeport, 6 years ago. Now, do I really want to go tear that out and replace it? No, but that patching bought us 6 years, and by the time we do it, probably 7 years. Yeah, we don't.
Patching bought you 6 years?
6 or 7 years, I'd say. So it was in really bad shape, and they were running rag right through there too. So it was a liability. But it's so where I'm going with that is I'm going to go through these projects, but the magnitude of our system and the age of our system is such that we probably don't have the money to take care of it. So it's an important thing to point out because every time somebody talks about going further and doing something new, let's just say a gravel road to whatever it is, I've got a guy that was, and it will come back up again, he wants me to pave the north end of Beaverdale to his house. Simple request. And he's like, it's only this far, it's only that much money. I said, I know very well how much it costs. I said it's not gonna happen. I said, you can come to a board meeting, we can talk about it, but I said, I can't just start paving dead end roads to people's houses. I said, it doesn't make any sense, it's not a good expenditure of money. Well, I said, now if you want to cost share, we can go to the board and see if they're willing to cost share. I said, all those are board of supervisors' decisions. I'm just telling you my perspective and everything. Well, he was he had a lot of stick-to-itiveness, and if you knew his name, you would understand. We went back and forth on email and phone last year, probably half dozen times. And he's a really smart guy. I mean, he can do his own Googling and he can find his own numbers and all that sort of stuff. And then he wanted me to do there's these like grids, they're meant for like parking lots or for people in their back, patio type stuff. They're like 4-inch deep plastic grids. They're like 1 foot by, or 2 by 2, and they lock together, and if you put them together and pack rock between them, they make this decorative, whatever. Chris used them for the grass parking area on North Prairie Grove Road.
Off of Dodgeville. I think he did it off.
He might have done it in
Dodgeville
2
Road,
spots, very possibly 2 spots. And it's supposed to be a natural looking surface, but it's firm. And he wanted me to do that on that. Well, first things first, they're extremely expensive. We weren't money ahead to pave it, but we would have had a better product. Secondly, you can't maintain those things. They're not meant for a roadway that you're gonna blade and maintain. They're meant for something where you're not gonna have to do anything. And I finally just told him, I said, oh, we're not gonna put these down. I said, as soon as we hook one, when we're in the winter time, with a plowing snow, or that maintainer clips it, or we need to do a ditching project and they're out in the way. I said, I can't. I gave him, I gave you all the credit in the world for finding it, and they look like a very good product for certain locations. we won't be using them on a gravel road. We just can't. They don't allow you any flexibility for long-term maintenance. On top of that, you got utility lines that still need to be installed and stuff like that. So anyway, point being is there's all sorts of creative people out there, and some of them want to push it further than others. And maybe someday we do some paving, something that I don't foresee, but it all costs money. And we have a big system. So the 5th year is kind of a year that you can kind of get a snapshot of that if somebody hits you up. But so I got Beaverdale Road, the Bridgeport Road, that is the other mile. So it's about a 2-mile road down to the river. So, and I will say this, once you get past the quarry, Bridgeport is in a better condition than it is north of the quarry, but I think significantly better. But again, you can't forget that all that curb and gutter is in the same kind of age. So what it looks like now compared to what it's gonna look like in 5 years is possibly very different. So, Highway 79, you know, we did an asphalt overlay project on that, how long has that been? Probably 14 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I don't know, something like that. So in 5 years, that's pushing 17 or 18 years old. You know, it probably should be on our radar for an asphalt overlay. Do you think I can afford another $2 million there? Probably not, but, so that's on there. Then there's a couple bridges. The bridge on Tama Road, there's actually 2 bridges on Tama Road that we need to address, but one of them I think we're gonna try to do some work on an approach and maybe take care of it. But the other bridge is not in the program, but it's over the drainage district, and it just flat out needs replaced. It's a pain, but either way, I want to point out there's a bridge that's on the radar down there. J14 50th Avenue, that's a bridge down in the bottoms. It's probably had about all the work that it could have done to it without being replaced. The county before my time came in and put new piers underneath it, so it's had some work done to it. I had to come in and do some work on the back wall because it fell apart. So it's on our radar. And we didn't get anywhere near all of this stuff. So some of this stuff you're just, I know you can look at the map and have an idea where it's at, but it's not like you looked at some of this and thought, oh, that's on this program. So, we needed at least 3 more hours just to get, if you wanted to try to hit every single thing in here. Beaverdale Road, you'll see 2 bridges right there. If you go north again out the pavement and then you get to gravel, there are 2 bridges out on Beaverdale and the gravel. Both of those are posted because of the new the new 7-axle dump truck that the state started allowing on our system about 3 years ago. Here's some more fun facts coming our way. Right now, the state is trying to pass a new bill to allow agriculture to run 90,000 pounds year-round. Whereas now it's done under the emergency proclamation every fall. The governor signs.
90,000 pounds year-round.
So you're in the state of Iowa, 80,000 pounds is the legal limit for a typical truck.
Right.
Actually, not just the state of Iowa. My guess is that's national. And every fall, the governor signs an emergency proclamation, which puts into effect allowing the agricultural sector to haul 90,000 pounds during fall, and sometimes it rolls into the spring, but it does eventually terminate.
Well, what's that extra 10,000 pounds on a regular basis? What's that gonna do to the roads? And
That's an awesome question to which nobody at the state legislature cares to discuss. So they just like to say, don't you remember we gave you a gas tax about 10 years ago? We gave you some money out of that, and so live with it. They're not interested in that conversation. Because it's not something immediate. It's a repetitive, and there is no way to put an exact. Your question is the same question we try to pose to them is, this has a long-term effect.
Yeah.
Clearly you're gonna do it every year in the fall like you're already doing. But here's the other factor. I don't think we're gonna see a major change, but when they make it law, I believe the state DOT will, or the feds will come in and say, you now have to rate all your bridges for 90,000 instead of 80,000.
Right.
Now, most of them, I don't think we'll see a posting because of that. There will be counties that do have, if it's a fringe bridge, it will impact it. I think that the 7-axle dump truck was a bigger factor for our bridges and probably most counties than the 90,000 on the semis. But the point is when it was an emergency proclamation, we didn't have to go have them rated because of the way that it is defined. When it becomes permanent, we're told, we haven't heard it directly, but if it does become permanent, we're told that in all likelihood, we will have to start rating for that extra heavy.
When's this supposed to be going for?
It's in the legislative session right now. It's changed forms a couple of times. I actually just found out about it about Thursday last week in a meeting. I didn't even know, there's actually a fair number of people that didn't even know that it existed, I guess is how I'll put that. So I don't know where it's at, I don't know the number of it, I don't know all sorts of stuff, and I doubt that we get a whole lot of say in it. I just want to point out that that's a long term. And then I was sitting in a meeting, I was actually at ISAC, and the state bridge engineer got up and had a discussion, they had a talk. And it sounds like the feds are now, and this will be a beast. The feds are now saying they want us to go find out the heaviest emergency response vehicle and make sure that all the bridges in that area's service are specially rated for the worst case scenario emergency response vehicle.
Are there dollars coming with this?
Oh, there's never dollars coming with it. Oh, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. The state, the state law, they're gonna run it through a permit process. And it's gonna be a $500 permit for you to be able to run your 90,000 pound truck. And they're gonna give 80% of it, 75% of it, I don't remember what it was, to the counties to be used towards bridge rating and maintenance. So I think it calculated out to be $375 per permit. So please don't spend it all in one place.
I'll say, how many permits are we gonna need?
So the state's gonna issue.
We're not gonna have enough permits, so.
The state's gonna issue those permits.
I believe that's how they're looking at, that's what I've been told, is that's how they're looking at it, is they're looking at what they call an all systems permit, which would then allow them to run anywhere. It's a way that, I think.
You know what the compliance rate will be with that, those permits?
What was the compliance rate?
There's a county permit that you're supposed to have at a steel erection company and cranes. They're all heavy. Ran them all the time. I didn't even know the county required permits.
He's not wrong.
Seriously?
Didn't even know it.
So it's.
How would you though?
Well, and I don't know at that time they didn't. And we got stuck once not having a state permit. We drove a 35-ton crane with the counterweight on it, and we shouldn't have. You have to put it on another truck and follow it behind. We were in a hurry. So I think it was $2,500, and this would have been 40 years ago.
That you got fined?
Yep. So $2,500 was a kick in the butt.
So what I'm saying is there's some stuff coming on bridges that someday I may walk in here and say, guess what, guys, we're gonna post more bridges, because the rating for the heaviest emergency response vehicle is a far bigger issue than 90,000 pounds. The 90,000 pound is the bigger issue in the life cycle of the whole situation, and not just bridges. Keep in mind, 90,000 pounds in springtime when roads are soft and guys are hauling grain. I mean, 80,000's enough, and they got to move it. I moved grain all week last week. I mean, I know it's got to get to the river, and it's got to get onto a barge, and they got to make their money, and that's part of the overall system. And I firmly believe we have to live with that. But again, it's repetitive, and if it's permanent, it's just at a repetitive nature. It's repetitive on the pavements, it's repetitive on the bridges, and it's repetitive on the gravel roads. And it's not something you can truly quantify unless you have a bridge that is right there and maybe it would have lived another 5 years without being posted, but when you run it for a 90,000 pound load instead of an 80,000 pound load, guess what? You're gonna put up a 40-ton sign, and then they're gonna drive right by it, right across it with 90,000 pounds. Because that's what's, I guarantee you, happening. We got all started on this with Beaverdale Road. Do you think anybody going to the ethanol plant in the fall that's using Beaverdale Road to come down is paying any attention to the 40-ton sign? I'm sure they're not.
It's a county road and the DOT's doesn't have a car setup on it.
Yeah,
on
so
that
I
road.
mean, now they will, the DOTs will sit down by the ethanol plant and check, but down there, they're legal at 90,000. You know, they're just making sure they're not running 105,000. You know, they're down there because you can run, you know, anyway. Point being is, but this one for the emergency response, and I haven't, it got brought up in a meeting by this guy, so my assumption is that we will get some official direction, but the largest trucks, the largest truck that the fire department in Burlington has, they're beasts. Those fire trucks are heavy as heavy gets. I mean, there's nothing heavier if I had to guess. And when you look at mutual aid, and the way they bounce into all their territory, we'll just have to go find, if that all comes about, we're gonna have to go find the truck, and then we're gonna have to figure out what the axles and the weights are, because they won't have that information. We'll have to do all that. And then we'll have to pay our bridge consultant. My guess is to rate all of our bridges again for that loading. And then I'm not sure how we post it, to be honest with you, because it's not a normal vehicle. So there's a lot of bridge stuff coming down the pipeline that certainly could have an impact. And when it's all said and done, we could have a lot more posted bridges than we did originally.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting, because how many fire trucks do you see that's got duals on them? Not too many.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them aren't that big a deal, but again, that was kind of the verbiage he gave to us is what he thought the feds were gonna mandate was us rating our bridges for the heaviest possible emergency response load, which is a fire truck. And it's the biggest fire truck because Burlington gets called in as mutual aid on almost everything. So.
Yeah, it's heavy.
How big are them tankers? How many thousand gallons? 1, 2,000?
You know, I'm not sure. I would guess more than one. But when you look at loading and everything, my suspicion is that's not gonna be as big a deal as the other. But I don't know. Because we keep in mind, we are already rating for the 7-axle 90-some thousand dump truck.
Yeah.
My guess is that's heavier than that water truck. But I don't know. Somebody in structural stuff will figure all this out, and we will get the honor of paying for it at some point, and signing for it if need be. Because that's why we have signs. That's why we have 2 posted bridges on Beaverdale. Those bridges would be just fine normally, but now there's 80,000 pound signs instead of 90. So those legally they can't cross with 90,000 pounds. Now structurally, those bridges are just fine for 90,000 pounds. But because of that 7-axle dump truck, when you stick 90-some thousand pounds on a shorter vehicle, even if you put a bunch of axles underneath it, guess what? It's on that bridge in a smaller area. So, all things, so there are 2 bridges on here from Beaverdale Road. Those are the ones up on the gravel. I don't love having posted bridges on Beaverdale Road, but I'll tell you this, I haven't had a single complaint from the day we posted them. So it tells you that it didn't bother anybody or they're not paying any attention. I don't know. You can take your own guess. So, Highway 61 approaches, same thing, nothing new there. Rock surfacing, crack sealing, culvert liners, and right of way. So, if you look at the very last page, page 16, that Sarah was striving to get to, you know, as you go through the totals, I'm not going to read all the totals off, but what I will guarantee you is that I'm not sure we have a full 4.215 million in 2026 to do projects, and I guarantee you that we don't have 9.835 million in 2027, but the point of it is to show you that we do have that many priorities. and none of them are free. So, anyway, that's the overall program.
None of them are free. Oh, good way to close out, bud.
So,
Carter, we thank you for that. It's always interesting, people do not know what they're missing. I still say they should be here one time, and I commend Terry Johnson.
yeah, I do too.
She's a warrior.
And
Had to wake up Sarah 3 times.
I like to listen to it, because after you showed us, you know, on the road tour, we know what you're talking about, and it really helps.
I
Anyway,
appreciate your
that's
time.
me.
You guys need to see this in the field along with on paper.
Yeah, yeah, even though I got an idea of a lot of the stuff, some of it I still can't picture in my mind. I got the general idea, and I got it on the map, but I still.
Yes, and we'll get out, we'll look.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Yep.
do that.
So no, I appreciate your time. I'll let you go ahead and run. I would obviously recommend approval. Now, I would mention, if you notice on the agenda item, it says approval of budget and 5-year program. The budget part of it, it's just a standard DOT form. We've already done our county budgeting. It's nothing new. I'm not even going through it. It's just another DOT document. So you're approving both of those so we can submit them. But that's the deal with that. And I like I said before, you're approving a 5-year program, and in 4 weeks, something could change, you know, who knows? So there you go. Thank you.
I move to approve.
No, wait a minute.
Motion to close public hearing.
My bad.
Yeah.
Motion to
Forgot where
close
you were
public
at.
hearing.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yep.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
I move to approve his 5-year project. 5-year,
Second.
Budget and plan.
thank you.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
I do have a work session, but I only want about 5 minutes of your time. So,
People in hell want ice water.
it's a valid point.
What about them? What about them?
They're thirsty.
Just a minute there, I gotta go back here, I was being proactive and.
Sending the
You can
stamps?
close the meeting up.
Yeah, we're gonna close the meeting.
Okay,
Or if
with
you voted.
the, aye, we're out of here.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
This won't take much of time.
Don't run out, guys, you aren't actually out of
I'm
here.
not, I'm just putting on my laptop.
I just wanna give something for you to think about, and then we'll move on.
Are these the Class C roads the ones that you don't gravel, that you don't rock every 2 years?
They're dirt roads that get.
Okay.
Brian, can I stamp these?
I think you can do whatever you want, Joe. We normally submit them electronically, but right now the system's down, so we may be scanning them and sending them, which is kinda old school. You don't need to read the whole policy, I'll
Did you
direct
make,
to-
you didn't make any changes to this, did you?
No changes, this is the existing policy.
Okay.
Nope, absolutely no changes. I'm not proposing any changes, I'm asking you to think about whether you have any interest in a change, but it hasn't been formally requested, I just wanted to discuss it with you before a landowner requests a work session, because I don't know if that'll happen or not, but it's been brought up. You wanna open, did you close the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah,
Are we
and
in the work session?
I just restarted the,
So we're in the work session?
yes.
Are you ready for me, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, just jump straight down on the front page, jump straight down to A, under section 3A, resolution. And I'll read through you, and I'll be directing to the point for what I want you to kick around as you think about it. But roads may only be classified as Area CC roads, Area Service C, by resolution of the board upon petitions signed by all landowners joining the road. Okay, stop there, you can quit thinking about everything else. These are dirt roads that people are petitioning to request to have gates on the end of them. Okay, so you get bored, really bored, and you wanna read the rest of the policy, We're not, I have no desire for any changes in the policy, and I don't care about this as much, I just wanna bring it up to you. This is the county ordinance, and it has been, that verbiage has probably been in this ordinance from the day that this ordinance was adopted. Sea level roads they used to exist, so this ordinance isn't 50 years old. But, why I'm bringing this up is that I finally got around to reading the Code of Iowa. The Code of Iowa does not require a petition at all to make a road a sea level. It doesn't require all the adjoining landowners to sign the petition. That's just our ordinance. I sent out a questionnaire to statewide counties, because not all counties have sea levels. So I sent out a petition, and it's all over the place. Some require a petition with all the signatures. Some just require a petition with whatever signatures they can get on them. Some don't require a petition at all. They just require the landowner to come, make a request formally to the board, and then it's taken into consideration. The board has the right within the Code of Iowa to convert a road to a sea level by statute. But the county that we approved an ordinance way back when, before my time, that requires all the adjacent landowners to sign the petition, and we've held to that all the way along. There is a current dirt road. It's been attempted, so let me go back. If you want to vacate a road, it does not require all the signatures on the petition. We do make them go get a petition to vacate it, so close it permanently, get rid of county easement. But the county board can vacate a road anytime they want also. This dirt road, it's kind of a long winding dirt road up a hill. Two of you have probably been out to it, you just don't remember it or whatever, but this is just north of Burlington. Up by the elk farm, up by Triple H Hunting Lodge area. So anyway, this is a long winding dirt road. It historically is a very...
On the west, obviously.
On the west, 99. It's historically a very wet road, and it's a favorite road of both adults and children, young adults, older children, to tear up. I mean, it gets rutted up.
That's a mud road?
Yeah, it's secluded, it's rutted, and we have more times than not had to just move a dozer in August or September, just because it's so torn up that that's the only thing we could do with it.
This isn't the road that takes you to Triple H.
Yeah, once you go past Triple H, it turns to a dirt road.
Oh, this is after, okay.
Yep. There's a farmer on here that came it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. He wanted to vacate it. And he actually got signatures on a petition, probably not 100%. I believe there were some that wouldn't sign. The majority of them would. And he actually got all the way to a public hearing and everything else, and the board voted, they refused it. They didn't follow through with it because there was a few people that opposed it. One of them being an adjacent landowner, but then there were some other people that just, I think one liked to drive through it to look at birds or something.
I remember that.
So it did come all.
What do you normally do on that? I mean, have you ever seen where there's an adjacent landowner where they just said, no, we're gonna shut it down anyway, when somebody's, what would you do in a situation like that? Are there any other options?
It just stays an open road. No, he would like other options, and I can't give him other options.
I'm saying, when there's an adjacent landowner, is there really any other options? If the adjacent landowner says, no, I don't want this closed.
Well, I mean, an adjacent land, keep in mind, the board can vacate a road no matter what anybody says.
That's what I'm getting at. So it doesn't matter what they say, we can still strong.
Yeah, they could have done that, absolutely. They chose not to, and that's what I tell most people that ask. Most people that ask that want to do something, I warn them, I'm like, talk to your neighbors, talk to people you can, because I said, unfortunately, this still comes down to politics, and boards don't like to close roads when there's opposition. I said it's just the nature of it, like it or not, and most of them are frustrated because they want it closed, but that's just the way it is. Our petition requires all the landowners to have signatures. On this road, there's an adjacent landowner who, I mean, his property, without doing a full property survey, it skims the road. I don't know, it's not like he owns a huge chunk of it.
What do you mean skims?
like maybe he's got a property line like here, and the road right away may or may not brush the property line.
Okay.
So he doesn't have access, he's not using it for anything, but he is an adjacent landowner as far as I'm concerned. I put a little effort into it with our surveyor to make sure that there wasn't a huge gap kind of a thing. Where I'm going with this is, the landowner is going to pick up a C-level petition and go around the guy that wants to get this C-leveled and go get signatures. He wants to present it to the board, which is all good, it's all, but I've told him, I said, by ordinance, they can't even consider it if you can't get this one landowner to sign. The one landowner doesn't live out there, his kid lives out there, and his kid is one of the primary problems with tearing up the road. So there's a rub there. I'm really not asking you to even, I'm just giving you a little bit of background. I'm just want you guys to think about, if he proposes an ordinance change, would you be open, or are you open to a petition without being able to bring a petition for consideration without all signatures? I don't, it doesn't matter to me at this point, doesn't matter to me at all for that matter. It's just something I want to bring up to you in a very generic sense for you to be thinking about. So if this lands here with this conversation, it wasn't brand new, dropped on top of you, and you never even thought twice about it. So this is, from what I can remember, the first time something like this has really come up. Most of the time, when they can't get a signature, they drag their feet, and eventually that person signs because they get fed up with the same problems. But this guy's a cattle farmer, and people are getting stuck in the middle of the road, and they're cutting his fence so they can turn around, and he'll give, if he comes down someday, he'll give you his horror stories, and I don't blame him for being frustrated, but he would love to do something, and I don't have any choices. It's either an open road or a gated road, but you know, it is what it is.
So my question is, if this is an ordinance that says there has to be 100%.
We would do an ordinance amendment. It would.
That's what I mean, we would have to change the ordinance, okay.
And I told him, I said,
I have no problem with changing the ordinance myself.
Well, and you don't need to decide here.
This list of stuff here that it's costing the county to do for people to tear up, that's a no-brainer.
Like I
Because for
said,
Jimmy, I'm slow, so I need a little time to digest, you know what I'm saying?
I'm fine with that. This wasn't laid out for you to make decisions. This is laid out for you to debate, think about, ask me a question someday and say, what if, whatever it is. And maybe he doesn't come down. I don't have any idea, but I think my guess is he will. And if he gets all the signatures, maybe he can sweet talk the parents into signing. They're the landowners. I doubt it. They wouldn't sign it before, but maybe he can. I don't have any idea. I just want to point out to you, this is not the first time this topic's come up, and it may land in your lap again. So, keep in mind, just because they show up with a petition doesn't mean you approve it. That still becomes we've had road vacation requests before that got denied, even when I supported it, because there was opposition. I mean, you still have the final choice in the end, no matter what. We were gonna vacate a road up in Pleasant Grove, and we got it was that north road of that lot where we own our building, and there was a bunch of resistance because of the recycling being there, so we just walked away from it. We were just gonna do it to clean it up, just to get that easement off, and I'm still gonna do something up there, but point being is these have gone both ways, sea levels and vacations. So no matter what you change, the board of supervisors is still the final say, and nothing happens without their approval.
If you vacate the road, it goes back to the landowners.
The county easement goes away.
Yeah.
So the original property lines take over, because they're still there. We just have an easement, and the The utilities have a right to stay there, because there could be utilities there, but as far as that goes, the road is no longer a county road.
This guy wants a level C, he doesn't want vacated.
He can't get the neighbors to sign for a vacation. There's some new neighbors out there that support the level C, but they will not support a vacation.
We have to have all the signatures for,
To be able to consider it as it is now, you have to have all the signatures. Yes. Yeah, but the reason I'm bringing this to you is I always assumed that was by code. I really did. I've never once, until about 3 weeks ago, read the code of Iowa about sea level roads. I didn't have a reason to. We have an ordinance. That's the rule of the land as far as I'm concerned. So I thought, I was bored. You know, what the hell, let's read the code of Iowa. So I pulled up the code of Iowa and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, there's a lot more flexibility here than I realized. So I wanted to bring it to your attention for something to think about. I will probably ask him to formally request that you guys consider changing it if that's what he wants. I will probably not be the motivation behind that, because I don't really care. My job's not to, I will ask you to change stuff when I want to change. This is not one of those times. So kick it around, think it about. It may not come up again, but if it does, I'll bring him down on a work session. He can sit here and talk to you and tell us his horror stories, and you guys will at least have some prior thought onto it.
what's your opinion on a vacate the road for fencing the road, you know, like 172 is out there?
I pretty much leave that to landowners. Most people want to keep that county maintenance, so most of the time on a dirt road, if they want to gate it, most of the time I won't fight it, because it tends to mean less maintenance for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't say that that's a guarantee for every single spot, but more times than not, it means less maintenance for us.
But you still, on a gated road, you still go out and once a year or so.
Only if they request it.
If they request it.
Now, sometimes we might not be there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't go unless, we don't make an automatic point to go there unless we get requested. So,
I'll tell you a story about a vacated road, or a fenced road.
What's that, Jimmy?
I went to Carter and I said, why is this a gated road here? Here, I've got a house over here and I've got a house here. And it's about a quarter of a mile between this house and this house. To get to this house, it's about 4 miles around to get to this house on the bus route. I told Carter, I said, why don't we check, see if I'll open that up? He looked at me and he said, your signature on that when you're closing.
it was.
Brian, did you take a picture?
Wait a
and
second,
send
you
it
better
to
go
him?
talk to Jim Carrey.
I didn't need to.
You might want to talk to Jim Carrey about that, Jimmy. I tell Tom to do it all the time, talk to Thomas about it.
I will occasionally advocate or be proactive in wanting a road vacated. I've never been proactive on the sea level on the gate. That's always driven by landowners.
Yeah.
They have to want it because it's a pain. It's one more thing they have to open to get to their property. And that tends to be the biggest problem with those, is you put the gates up, you chain them, you lock them, they're padlocked, they all have keys, and after a couple years, or 5 years, or 3 months, or whatever, all of a sudden the problems stop, and they don't really want to screw with locking it anymore, and then then it gets left unlocked, and then the gates get left open. And then your normal next complaint is somebody took off driving through there because they didn't know where they were at, or they were lost, or they're following Google, and they got to the other end. Guess what the other end was? It's locked and gated.
Yep.
So that tends to be the long term of how these things go.
This particular road I'm talking about though, it's the same
Oh, yeah.
landowners all the way through there.
Yep, I know, actually, it's, I just was looking at that one, so, yep. Anyway, something for you to think about. If it lands in here, at least it won't be, like I said, a complete out of nowhere thing. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks for the heads up on that, Steve.
Yes, we are through.
Hey, Tom, Shane had a question for you about concrete removal.
About what?
Remember what we talked about before the meeting? You've probably done it, it's been 4 hours.
Concrete removal?
Yes, Shane wanted to know if it was gonna be